Welcome to Muay Thai Bones, the most in-depth podcast on Muay Thai in the world. Yeah. Is that the new thing we're saying?
Sure.
If you're new to the podcast, we're driving home. Our home's in Pattaya, about 10 and a half hours from Chiang Mai. Sylvie just has come back, just fought 2 fights in Chiang Mai, and we do this podcast on the way home, basically sharing the kinds of conversations that we naturally have, and basically we're exploring like all the ways in which Muay Thai touches life.
Yes,
right, baby?
Which is everywhere.
Which is our lives, but also hopefully to inspire other people to be touched by it in a broad way.
Yeah.
So we don't usually do this, but we do field questions from people. Normally our subjects come from things that we've been thinking about since the last podcast, things that come up in our life. We're always like...
We actually do just have these conversations all the time, and then we make it semi-structured and formal for the podcast, so the things that we come up to talk about are generally things that we
talk about anyways. But we also field questions. So the first we asked on Facebook for ideas of things that people are interested in, and Hannah Jackson?
Yes.
Hannah Jackson said she'd be interested in how it was in the beginning when Sylvie first started training in New Jersey with Master K. I think she said that she's beginning herself and wanted to have some kind of connection with your beginning times.
Yeah.
So maybe set the stage. Not everybody knows who Master K is and where you began so many years ago, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, Master K is this incredible figure in, like, not only my origin story, but like...
I like that origin story.
But how I will forever see Muay Thai. Like, he shaped how one sees, which is one of the coolest things about the Muay Thai library, is that Muay Thai is Muay Thai, but when you go train with somebody who has a style or who has an expression of Muay Thai, they teach you how to see it. They're like, this is how I see it. And that was Master K at the beginning, and he not only saw it at least somewhat the way that I saw it, literally the first time I had ever witnessed Muay Thai at all, which was in a movie, and I was like, this is incredible, but the way that he introduced me to his visions and his love for Muay Thai got into my heart.
Well, let's pull back and, like, who is Master K? Like, that people don't.
Master K was at the time 69 years old when I met him, and he's a Thai man. He's from just outside of Bangkok proper, like just across the bridge, and he had moved to America, I think the year I was born. He lived in New Jersey, and he loved Muay Thai, and so he would train Muay Thai.
He was a Muay Thai fighter.
He fought when he was very young, and he had 79 fights, which was the most fights I'd ever heard of in my life. When he said that he had fought 79 fights, that was unbelievable. It's still a lot. But when he was right at the age where you would, like, take off as a fighter potentially, or do something else, he got married and did something else. So he ended up not going into being a Muay Thai fighter at this prime time, but his love for it never went away. So he would, like, train himself in his basement in New Jersey. He totally had, like, the pillars of his basement, he had put, like, pads around in order to create things that he could, like, kick and play with, and he'd wait for his wife to leave before he could do it so that it wouldn't, like, shake the house and she'd yell at him and things like this.
Totally.
So amazing. And then he took students. So it's like one-on-one training in his basement, and that's how I started learning Muay Thai, because I had initially gone to a gym that said they had Muay Thai, but
it was Taekwondo, basically.
It was crap. It was literally shit that they said, this is Muay Thai, and they would put, like, some elbow drills in to, like, make it seem like Muay Thai. And this, unfortunately, was also a student of Master K, so he had exposure to real Muay Thai, but because he had a business and ego or whatever the thing was, he was not teaching Muay Thai. Which, the reason to mention that is that I went to learn from this Globo gym kind of thing.
Well, it was a small gym.
It was a small gym.
We don't have to be super harsh about it.
I went to learn from this guy, and I'm like, this is not Muay Thai. Like, I didn't know what Muay Thai was, but I'm like, this isn't it. And then when I went to Master K and felt and saw, and I'm like, this just speaks to what I wanted. That's like
immediately fell in love.
Yes, like this is for my heart. This meets my heart.
And Master K's heart was burning with an incredible ember because he was removed from his home country, removed from this fighting art that he loved, that he had fought in, and he had for decades, by the time we met him, also been working on his Muay. Like, he had his Muay from when he was fighting in the 70s, but he also just continually worked on what Muay Thai was to him.
Yeah.
So when we encountered him, he was like a mad scientist of Muay Thai.
Totally.
Who was hitting 70 years of age.
Totally.
And he, I like to say that Diesel Noi is the only man I've met who loves Muay Thai as much or more than Master K.
Yeah,
We've met a lot of people who love Muay Thai. It's quite passionately followed. But Master K kept that flame alive in America, in his basement. At 3 a.m, he'd be working on his kick. Like, his perseverance was insane.
It was his particular style and expression of Muay Thai. He was always emphasizing to me finesse. Like, he wanted finesse in everything, which I did not have because it's off balance. Didn't know how to use my hips. Like, stressed. Yeah. Trying to do right, like trying to do what he's telling me to do, and trying just fucks up everything.
It wasn't just finesse. He had a very powerful style, like explosive. He was inspired by Western boxers.
But his point was always this beauty in the power. He wanted to hurt somebody. He was not like
he wasn't a
beefy at all.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was an explosive.
But you would do the kick like that because it was beautiful violence.
Yes. Very true.
And I think that stayed with me in this, like, the way that the movement has like a technical side and a literally how you execute it and power and you want to hurt someone kind of thing. But finesse was, after all the years that I've actually been going into this and realizing things about Muay Thai, that's his expression. That's his masculinity coming through, is being suave and like the way that he would talk to waitresses when we went out to eat Thai food with him a couple of times. He's like so
He'd
suave.
drop his voice down
unreal
an octave. He was and just to let everyone know, so we lived quite far from any training. We were an hour and a half from a New York Manhattan gym. We lived in the woods basically in a little cottage, and so Sylvie, it was very expensive to take private lessons, but that's what he offered and that's what was special. So we tried to see Master K as much as possible, and it started out once a week.
Yeah.
We would drive an hour and a half, I don't remember, to his home in New Jersey and have these sessions, and that's how our YouTube started. We would just film these sessions, and they're all up on YouTube. Mostly, some of it was to like check your technique or whatever. Most of it was like Master K is like a Mr. Miyagi, incredible persona, and his Muay is old school. And we were like, we want to share this with the whole world. It's just stuck in a basement, really. And I'm like, we need to show people. And it was like the beginning of realizing what YouTube was, because people all over the world started like looking at Master K's old Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's very special to begin with Master K. Like,
for sure.
Like, we've seen legends everywhere. There's still no one like him, like even close. And it's also interesting because he's also a man of a time, and occasionally we come upon somebody in Thailand that has elements of Master K.
Sagat has elements of Master K.
Yeah. When you train with Sagat, you're like, wow, am I back with Master K? Which is fucking incredible.
Totally.
Like,
the like Iron Grandpa.
The Iron Grandpa. Right, totally.
But
which is very special. It's like we go far from Master K back to Thailand and we find him.
There's an element to the question, the original question of what was it like to train with him. And we're talking about who is he, like what is he like?
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that I look back on now in what it was like to train with Master K is this, and again, like you find elements of Master K in everything now, like things that were very unique to him. I'm now like, oh, that's a very Thai thing. Like that's a very Thai man thing. Is that the relationship you have with your trainer is not separable from your experience of learning Muay Thai.
What do you mean? I don't fully. What do you mean by separate? Why would you think they're separable?
I don't know. It's like I can go to any gym and learn Muay Thai. Like, no, you can't. I have tattoos. I have lots of tattoos. To me, it was always very important that I have an okay, immediate relationship with the person who's going to be tattooing me. Not only because with my first tattoo, it was 9 hours. I'm going to be sitting with this dude for 9 hours. But there's a degree of trust to being shaped by somebody or submitting yourself to being shaped to somebody, or I'm going into a shaping project and you're going to help me. Right. There has to be a rapport or relationship there. And it's not easy. It's not all like we get along so great. Like the disappointment and frustration that Master K would have in me not getting things, and then my own frustration with me not getting things, his joy when I would get things, my joy when I would get things, like it's completely
Well, he
integrated.
also had an Asian dad kind of thing where he's not going to be very generous with compliments. And you combine that with somebody who's really self-critical, like you are, can be really, like you'll weigh harder on yourself if Master K like has like a tight mouth or something after something. And 1 second, there's an ambulance flying by. And I think that the weird combination of Master K's incredibly beautiful Muay Thai, like it's as beautiful as any we've seen in all of Thailand, and it's real, like it's not some kind of like stage Muay Thai. Like the things he understood about the kick, weight transfer, the hips, like these are things that
power in the standing leg.
These are things that are taught and not even known by legends. And on reflection, we knew it was something special then, but we didn't know anything else. I'm telling you, 10 years later, it's really special Muay. And so you were being exposed to this, what we used to call like PhD level.
Yeah.
And you're like, I haven't even really learned how to block, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting this really beautiful Muay Thai, and it created a lot of tension for yourself.
Another aspect of what was it like to train with Master K is he is a older Thai man who's like not only a time capsule, but he has all these cultural tendencies and references that come from being an older Thai man. So he would not touch me. Like I couldn't clinch with him.
Really?
He would hit me a little bit later, but like even then it was like taking the foot off the gas immediately if I showed any kind of like discomfort. Like he was very protective of me. And so elements of that relationship shaped the way that I was able to learn Muay Thai, or what I was able to learn at that time. And it's not, I love Master K and he is an absolutely incredible teacher, but those things that can't change are not conducive to the contact that's necessary.
Oh, the cultural barriers. Yeah, 100%. And I don't know, I think it was an extreme example of what a lot of people encounter when they come to Muay Thai, especially when they encounter it at a really authentic level, like they train with a Thai ex-fighter, or they come to Thailand and they just see the fluidity and the balance, and the thing is like, you encounter this technique that just is like another world of movement and ease, relaxation, and you're just like, I want to do that. And it's not easy. If you're just trying to approximate it, you're going to run into a lot of stress and disappointment. Right?
It's very easy to misunderstand things that, so Gansak teaches at AMA, which is like MMA people.
And Gonzaga is a 2-time fighter of the year, all-time legend, Yod Muay.
From the Golden Age.
Who's
He's
in
amazing.
New Jersey, teaches in New Jersey, United States.
So he has fighter students. He has real students. They totally go and fight. They're real fighters. And he's bringing elements of Thailand Muay Thai with him because of who he is and what he did and all of these things. He can teach amazing elements of Muay Thai, but he cannot make a 25-year-old man who's going to go fight in an octagon do shadow punches back and forth across the gym for 40 minutes. Like, that's what you do to a kid. Like, that's what he comes from.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. Master K definitely had elements that he had changed and adapted to a Western student, but a lot of his remained very old school in like repetition. Some of the videos, if you watch the videos, it's like 11 minutes of me doing one kick. Like over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's very true.
Which I think actually is really beautiful and cool.
I think it was hard on you, and I think just letting go of, like, even the other day, you put up that photo, this ballerina photo that I took of you, and I was like, wow, you're still thinking about the beauty of the kick. Like, that's really what you were thinking about with Master K. And I'm like, it's still there. Why are you giving me a dirty look?
It's never going to go away. Of course it's still there.
Yeah, but I'm saying that was a hard hill that you were climbing.
Yeah.
Like, we were in Thailand, well into Thailand, and you're like, Wung, please help fix my kick.
Yeah.
And he's like, go ahead, kick. And you kicked, and he's like, okay, no problem.
It's okay.
You look like you can hurt somebody.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. And you're like, no, the Thai kick. I want the Thai kick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can see you're still upset about it.
I'm not upset, no.
No?
But I don't think that the beauty of the kick in that photo came from me focusing on the beauty of my kick ever. It
100.
came from these fucking burn drills that
100%.
he knew was making me do endlessly.
Well, that's kind of what I'm pointing out in a weird way is, like, as you sit and look at the photo, you have the aesthetic eye that you had even back when you were looking at Master K, when we'd see Master K kick and be like, holy fuck, it's so pretty.
Yeah.
But you cannot get to that kick by chasing the beauty.
Yeah.
Like, that's the hard part. Like, the way to the beauty is this whole round trip of exhaustion, repetition, surrendering to ugly,
Yes.
letting your body find its own lines.
Yeah.
Like, every body has its own lines.
Yeah.
Like water, you go to the top of the hill and you pour the water and you see where the water will run.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can dig a ditch and make it run a certain way, but really the things that you'll trust the most and use the most and will be most self-expressive, they're already there. Which is why Pinu and others are always like, Tamachat, like, natural.
Yeah.
Do what is natural.
Yeah.
And he's such an interesting foundation for your Muay, because it is just a crazy Mr. Miyagi thing going on. Like, really miss him.
He's so much cooler than Mr. Miyagi.
Oh, so much. So much. But if you made a movie of him, you'd turn him into that, probably,
Yeah,
right?
Probably. Yeah.
Any other thoughts about... We've thought to ourselves we'd like to fly him out here. You're like, not interested in talking about that. You're like,
100%.
I think it would be so cool to bring him into a gym and then Diesel Noi. Can you imagine
That'd be crazy. That'd be
him
so cool.
getting to meet Diesel Noi? Like, Master K, when he left Thailand, was probably right around when Diesel Noi was coming up as the great fighter of his generation.
Yeah. I remember when we were going to train with Sakmon Kon in Colorado.
Yeah.
And Master K was like, tell him he was very handsome. I'm like, okay. It's like, totally knows who these people are, like, remembers watching on TV.
Totally. Sakmon Kon was afterwards. So, but it would be very cool to have him in the space, like, and also, like, some of these legends walk in and they, like, have to hit the bag in the gym.
Totally. They can't help it.
Yeah, but he would just be like, whack, whack. Like, he's still hitting the bag at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Totally.
So I don't know, that's something we've thought about maybe doing.
Yeah.
He feels very far from Thailand though.
Yeah.
He like has a image of Thailand where it's really been like poured through a television's news screen for now decades.
Yeah.
And we're not sure if he would. Somebody driving like a crazy person.
Creative.
Sorry about that, guys. And another person driving like a crazy person.
Maybe get in the left lane.
Yeah, I have to pass this guy.
But yeah, it's when you first start, no matter where you are, there's this kind of excitement and exploration of going from nothing to something that's like rapid growth and really exciting, and it's like this pop of development. And way later, after many plateaus and frustrations and feeling like, what's wrong with me, I'm not learning as fast anymore, you kind of discover that you have a style. I never got to discover with Master K that I had a style that was not what was expected of me.
That was a big thing that lasted well into Thailand. Was he's a small guy, you're small, he wanted you to hop around a lot and
There's
be
also
very
the
like,
Muay that he likes is very like high idle.
high tempo, yeah. And so for a long time you were trying to like little man it.
Yeah.
And it took a while to even to discover Muay Cow.
Yeah.
And this kind of other way of fighting, and find yourself. And that took how many years, right? Like 3 or 4 years.
Many years.
Yeah. But we still keep Master K with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love him.
So that looks like we covered that pretty good.
Okay.
Right? Rolling?
Rolling.
Okay. Next topic kind of comes in line with what we were talking about with Master K, the origin story, right? Is growth spurts.
Growth spurts.
Sylvie just fought 2 fights in Chiang Mai, 253 and 254. 254 was against Nang Hong. We're not going to go too deep into the particulars of the fight because many of you haven't seen it, but it will be up with Sylvie's commentary, and it's already was live streamed on Facebook if you want to take a look at it. But Nang Hong is a really difficult opponent. Sylvie's fought her a lot and actually beat her many times, but every time it feels like you're fucking climbing up a rock wall with bare fingers. Like, she's big. She's like 8 or 9 kilos bigger now. She's confident, super experienced, well over 100 fights. She's mean. She'll like meet you in the eye. She wants to cut Sylvie. Like, she's learned like that's the way to stop Sylvie is to cut her.
And she can. Like,
And
she has the skill.
she's got the skills.
Yeah.
She's got multiple elbows. Throws elbows much more aggressively than almost any female fighter that you've faced. Like, there's only a handful that have been like that.
Yeah, I was actually the last time I fought her, I remember wondering aloud, how does she train the timing on those elbows in the clinch? Because like women don't train like that.
But
so
I'm
how
saying
does
that
do
she
it?
throws them more. I don't know about training, but she throws them more than I don't know that I've ever really any of your other opponents have thrown them so persistently.
No.
So this is a huge, like every time Sylvie's fighting her, it's like, yeah, Sylvie's got the better of her in the matchup, but it is like a very difficult fight. And I just want to, the reason why we're talking about it is me watching the fight is one of Sylvie's best fights ever. She fought in so many ways, like just controlling the fight, making the fight be where she wants it to be. And we saw, I don't know, how do you want to enter this growth spurts idea? Like, the many things were happening in that fight, many skills and qualities that for years you've like told yourself to do.
Yes.
And a lot of what this topic is about is yelling at yourself to go forward or to jab or do whatever. It might work for some people, but it does not work for Sylvie.
I don't think it works.
I don't know. I don't want to rule it out. I don't want to say you're doing it wrong if you're yelling at yourself. But if you're anything like Sylvie, you're doing it wrong. It does not help to be giving yourself verbal commands.
Yeah.
And so what we're kind of talking about is this really cool thing where in a single fight, Sylvie was suddenly doing like 5 things that she would a year ago or whatever be telling herself to do.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's actually like this, but I've read studies that usually they're linking it to diet, like people who are on diets. And they're like, turns out through all these studies, willpower actually sucks. Like, nobody can actually do things through willpower. And unfortunately, I don't read those articles closely enough to know what the alternate actually is. It's actually, I think, just changing habits. But I think that when you're screaming at yourself to do things that you know you should do, that's like a willpower situation, and it doesn't pan out.
It almost like puts the emergency brake on.
Yeah, but the like leap in vocabulary or ability or whatever it was that happened in this fight, I've been working on all those things. It was not like a matrix, I know Kung Fu downloading out of nowhere, which I think people mistakenly think that they can plan or like white fist their way into leaps of progress, which is like, so I have this fight at the end of the month against a girl who I know is going to throw some fucking hard right hands at me. So I need to work on my guard. If I'm like, all right, Sylvie, let's plan it. We have 20 days to like get a solid guard. I cannot plan out that growth. Like, I can work on it. I can focus on it.
Which is weird because there's a lot of it, how it's talked like in the UFC or whatever, is you have a fight camp and you develop particular skills and then you use these skills because your coaches are like, when they do this, you do that. It might work for some people, but you've found that's not the way to go for yourself.
No. And this growth in this fight, and maybe 2 fights, I don't know, but like, I have had these kind of sudden, like, just like quantum blip into a different level a couple of times. I don't plan for it. I don't go into the fight with like a particular conscious thing that allows that to happen. I'm sure there are things that are making that happen, like degrees of relaxation, my fuck it attitude, how much I don't like fighting now. Like, any of these things might play into the kinds of taking my hands off the wheel, getting the white out of the knuckles that allows
this
those
is really
things
weird,
to be
though,
revealed.
because this is stuff you've been working on for years, where you're like, relax, Sylvie.
Yep.
You know you fight better when relaxed, so you're telling yourself, relax. Practice relaxing. Like, these are things that produce great amount of frustration.
Yeah.
Trying to develop them. And some of this is what we've discussed in another podcast, I forgot which one, is that change sometimes is like a sand pile, where you like drop the little sand grains on the top of the sand pile and nothing really happens, and then you drop one and suddenly there's like a little avalanche on the side, and then you drop a couple more and nothing happens, and then suddenly you drop one and the whole side of the sand pile cascades. And there's a field of science that talks about networking, and the reason why that avalanche builds up is that the connectivity between grains increases over time as you're dropping the sand grains, and then suddenly they become like dominoes, and you drop that one and it just creates a cascade. And then it's theorized that the human brain is structured like this too, in that if you're learning not just particular skills, but rather like in a global sense, and this is why relaxation is important, you're building connections in your brain that can all be fired at once.
Yeah.
Right? And you might think you're not developing, just like those grains of sand are dropping, right? And nothing's happening, but all the connectivity between the grains is building up, and you could suddenly produce a global shift, like an avalanche of change. And it's almost like you prevent the avalanche from happening by stressing out so much that you haven't grown yet.
Yeah,
you
and trying
changed.
to control the particular growth. Like, the growth finds you, kind of. And then there's a secondary problem, which is that once there's been the cascade and you've made this leap, you're like, oh, well, that's the shape now. it's not going to stay that shape. Like, I'm not going to fight like that in every fight after that from now on. Like, I didn't control it then, I don't control it now, but I can become more consistent.
Well, more prone to that. And I think that really high level fighters, like when you watch like great fights of like boxing fights of the 80s or Muay Thai fights in the 90s, and you see really Yod Muay, you're really seeing fighters that are balanced on the edge of everything being able to cascade together at a single moment in the fight, which then becomes dominant.
Yeah.
But much of the fight, nothing's really connected and happening the way, I don't know what I'm fully saying here, but they're not at, like a Samart fight, he's not fighting at a 9 out of 10 the whole fight.
Right.
He's fighting at a 3 out of 10, a 6 out of 10, moving through the zone, but then at a certain moment, he's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like everything clicks together, and if it's not a knockout, it's a dominant moment that the fighter can't recover from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a trap that we fall into, a kind of weird perfectionist trap where we're like, just because I was able to do it, I should be able to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
But I mean, there's also like, because I fought Nang Hong, I think this was our 8th fight together. We know each other. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses and tendencies and things like that. And we have to keep adapting and changing to each other. And while I had a really good fight, like a really good performance in this fight, she was completely doing different things in the clinch than she's ever done before.
That's what made the performance so good.
Which maybe pushed me into those things that I wouldn't have gone into if she had not made that adjustment. And it reminds me of that, we watched a documentary last night called The Dawn Wall.
Which we might talk about later in the podcast.
We will, but I'm just bringing this up now. This climber, he's an amazing climber, cut off his finger. And like...
accidentally.
Everybody's like, you can't climb without your index finger. Everything is about this, like, that tiny little thing. Obviously, don't go cut off your finger. But like, it triggered something in him to lose that finger, to start training the way he trained.
An escalation,
Or to be like, fuck you, don't tell me I can't climb anymore.
Why are you bringing this up to the Nang Hong fight?
Because Nang Hong changing the way she's snuffing my clinch forced me to be like, okay, not that, I'm gonna do this. Whereas...
well, it moved you into creativity, I think.
Yeah, but even being able to move into that creativity is in itself a pop in development. Like, if I had just been like, oh, it's not working, I'm gonna keep trying to make this work, that's not movement in development. Like, I've had many, many fights where I try to force the thing that's worked before to work.
And then when it's not working, you get really down on yourself.
Right, so,
you're like, what the fuck's wrong with me?
So it's not necessarily the technique of like, oh, you brought your jabs in, the technique is the jab and that's what made it work.
Right.
It's the technique was flexibility of like, not that this. The technique was move to the next thing, try the next doorknob.
And for me, it returns back to what are you doing in the gym? And you've been working in the gym for maybe the last 8 months now on what we call growing your eyes. We've talked about it in other Muay Thai Bone episodes, which is about not trying to do the perfect technique, which everyone tries to do, but you really just want to start just perceiving what's happening. Like, where are your feet? You just got kicked. Did you see the kick? Like, see the kick. Don't judge the fact you didn't get your block up. See the kick. Let the supercomputer of your body experience things.
Yeah.
And not, like, don't verbally command yourself over and over again. Right? And you've been moving in this direction quite a bit, and I think that's where the flexibility has come from, is you're spending more and more time in that, like, unconscious, conscious state.
Yeah.
You're more connected to your training, so you feel like that's true?
I do. And I think that that's a hard thing to focus on, which is maybe what allows it to be a thing that actually grows. Like, the weed under your porch grows really well, whereas the stuff you're trying to curate in the garden is, like, difficult. You're, like, trying to get it to grow or whatever the thing is. Like, I've seen a couple of fights in the past year of not bad fighters at all, but because of their inability to have that flexibility or relaxation or whatever the thing is, decent fighters who do really well in other circumstances get reduced down to this, all I have is a jab. Like, I've run out of ideas and I only have this jab, and they just keep getting kicked back onto their starting block because they can't get it to work. And all they need, it's not like what you need is a right kick. All they need is the flexibility to move to something else.
So hard though.
It's really hard.
Because the reason why you have that belief is it's what you've entrenched in your training. What are you saying?
There's more traffic, so there's probably a slowdown or a stop or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there's something to it, which is like Pinu is always saying, you should lose all the time in the gym. Like, you should lose
training,
in clinching, you should lose in sparring, like all these things, because that pushes adaptability. Whereas winning all the time, you're like, I can just depend on this right cross.
This thing that always works.
Works every time.
And I think that a lot of Westerners run into this problem in that they might be able to dominate opposition that's not like Thai style sighted, like grown eyes opposition with something they do very well, and then a Thai will just take that away.
Yeah.
A typical thing happens in female Muay Thai is the Thai female fighter will just move away from you.
Yeah.
And in Thailand, you can score points by moving away from somebody defensively. And so, yeah, if you just stand there, I can punch you, great, but they're not going to stand there.
Yeah.
Or they'll teep you, or they'll just counter kick you the whole time and just rack up the points.
Stand and bang so I can look good.
Yeah, totally.
Stop.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I guess a deeper thought of this is like, and this is, you can just say this, but it's very hard to do, is realize that if you don't have like really acute self-critical thoughts and doubts about yourself, like, why haven't I changed yet? Why do I still have problems with my kick or my whatever? It's like, if you're doing the work in a relaxed way and a perceptive way, you're dropping grains of sand. You're creating connectivity in your body, right? That can produce a cascade of change. Like,
but you cannot schedule it.
You cannot schedule it. You don't even know. And you might be like, I'm ready to give up. But it's like, and that was also in the Dawn Wall. The guy was like, he was trying to traverse a part of the body, part of the rock face that he had never been able to traverse before, and he had failed with cameras on him. And every reasonable person would be like, he's just not going to do that. Like, and then suddenly he did.
Yeah.
Like, these little cascades of change are pretty cool. Now the question is, how do you like stay training in that, right?
Yeah.
When do you laugh like that? It makes you crack up.
Because
You're still laughing.
Because it's like those Zen riddles, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you're like, so the secret is not trying. I'm gonna try to not try. Like, it's fucking like, doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay, I think we handled that one pretty good.
Nope.
Are we rolling?
We're rolling.
Okay, little battery change. So next topic, I guess we're kind of rolling along a kind of like, what do you see?
Is your hazard or your blinker on? Okay.
Next topic is, we're kind of rolling along this kind of like training experiences theme accidentally, right? But a really cool thing that's happened recently is that there's a lot of women in the gym at Patron Rung. Sylvie trains at Patron Rung Gym in Pattaya.
For 5 years, I've been
more than 5 years.
The only woman most of the time.
I feel like you overstate that. There have been stretches when there's women in there, and you like. What's more important is you feel like you're the only woman in the gym very, very, very often. And the truth is that in the mornings, for many years, it would just be you and Pinu.
Yeah.
Like it was a very solitary experience. In the afternoons, they're much more much busier the more people come in the afternoons. But so you have this experience of being like the only female in a male space surrounded by older Thai trainers, Thai boys, and now suddenly it feels like there's a lot of women in the gym training.
Yeah, well, one, Caro has come to train, which is hopefully and very much potentially a long-term thing, which is very exciting because one...
Well, who's Caro? You can't just throw a name out.
Caro is from France, and she's come to Thailand before. She was training up in Ubon at Lam Namoon's gym last year for like 2 months. And then,
at her first fight then?
And then she came to our Muay Khao Summit in December, which she almost didn't come to. So like we potentially would never have met Caro, but she came to the summit and I just love her. She...
in some ways she's your like opposite in that she's like this super tall, like
we're physically dissimilar. Physically very
But then
dissimilar.
in other ways you guys are like you're cat memes mates.
Yeah. I was actually telling my mom that a lot of the things I really admire about Caro are things that we have in common, which allows her to be this mirror in which I can admire myself, because I don't admire those qualities about myself in myself.
You don't credit yourself.
I don't credit myself, but then when I see it in Caro and I'm like, she's so awesome for these reasons, I'm like, then I must, the math works out that I'm also awesome because I also do
A
those
equals
things.
B, B equals C.
You like to lock, I like to lock.
Totally.
So that's awesome. And if it were just me and Caro, that's awesome by itself. But even though I don't have much in common with other women who are at the gym in the way that I do with Caro in this like, do you share my madness way, just having other fucking non-male bodies at the gym is, it creates something. Like it kind of like echo chambers in this very small way.
Right.
And so there's a young woman from Australia who's there who is not like I'm going to be a hardcore fighter the way that me and Caro are, but she's totally dedicated to the work. Like she does the work.
And
trains
she's
hard.
inspired by it.
She wants to come back for like a year, which is very cool. And then Bai, who is the daughter of one of our trainers.
Yeah, it's not just Westerners, so a Thai girl.
So she's grown up in Muay Thai, and she's sporadic. Like she'll train hard when she has a fight, but she fights like once a year. She's in the gym more. Like she's actually getting more into it, and because she's like 14 now, she's much smaller than these other women. But because she has all this experience, they'll put her in, and she's like a stick figure. She's so little. You would think she's 11 looking at her.
Yeah,
she's very young looking. She's this tiny body just fucking wrecking bigger women. And then there's another Thai woman who isn't technically part of the gym, but she has her own trainer and then does the rest of her work with us. And so she'll like clinch and spar with us and stuff. She's also got this heart that's like, she just loves Muay Thai. And then one of Bai's friends is maybe coming in, and then we've got some young women who are coming in after school for like fitness. There's
and to keep
sampling of different motivations, but we're all not men. So
and to keep in mind, this is a traditional Thai family, like a small family style gym.
Yeah.
So having women there is really in the context of a larger, like traditional gym space.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a Western oriented gym really.
Yeah.
And so it's becoming a new thing.
Yeah. I mean it
I don't know, it's pretty amazing to see Caro. Caro's over 60 kilos. She's a clinch Muay Khao fighter. She loves the Muay Khao thing that Sylvie's
she's like
into
6 feet tall.
She's very tall and long. She's got the body that Dieselnoy is like made to instruct. And she was clinching with these guys that weren't Thais, Westerners. And I was like shocked to see her just overwhelming these guys. I was really shocked. And she was doing it in a very like calm but aggressive Muay Khao way. And it was just like every person in a gym creates a vibration, right? And even if you're not trying to make a vibration, you're making one. Like even if you sit in the corner or on your phone, you're making a vibration, right? Having these new vibrations in a traditional space and harmonizing a little bit like you feel like they are, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, the women are lifting the energy of the gym, because in some ways women have to train harder with more sincerity to be legitimated.
Yeah.
Which raises the level of the gym.
There's a typical male Western fantasy to come to a gym that's all ties, like where you're the only Westerner. And this is very hard to do. If they accept you, they generally accept all for wrong, like you're not special. But there's something about white maleness and how like you've never been locked out of anything in your life that can be a fantasy where like you go and you're just accepted into this like hardcore thing, like you're one of the ties kind of thing. For people who have experienced exclusion in their identities and worlds, having another person like you, even if you don't get along, even if I don't fucking connect necessarily to the other person, the other woman at the gym, like we don't have to be buddies. We don't want to be animosity towards each other or anything like that, but like we don't have to then become like a bonded thing. Just being there, just there being two of us changes things. Like now there's us, like now there's two. And this can be a total problem where like because you two are similar, now you're always paired off together, we're always grouped together, we're always considered the same. Like this can totally be a problem. But even when it's problematic, there's two of you. This makes a difference. This is a big thing. And now there's like five of us.
So what is that? Now you've experienced there's two of you before, but now there's four of you, five of you.
Like five or six of
like what is the difference between there's two of you and now there's five of you? Like what for you personally? Or is it just more? It's better, or is it quantitatively different?
It's not just more, but it's very hard to explain. And
well, that's what we talk about. That's what the Muay Thai Bones is about. This is stuff that takes lots of words.
Part of my whole process, or what I'm trying to achieve, are permanent, or at least repeatable changes to female Muay Thai. So I don't want to be... I fought at Max Muay Thai, the Max Stadium. There have been only ever 2, I think, female fights in the stadium ever. And then they were like, not anymore. That's not amazing to me. I don't want to be like, yay, I was the first, or I was one of only 2, and that's awesome. It's awesome if then there are more women fighting at Max. When I'm at the gym alone and I have these like blips of acceptance, or like Sylvie is like us, or how Pinu uses me as the example to be like, the boys have to catch up with Sylvie. That's cool, except I'm an exception still. Like I'm accepted as an exception. It's different when there's then 2 of you that's like, okay, Sylvie works hard, we expect this woman to work hard too. Or like the other day, the boys had all pretty much cleared out, and we went into the weight room to like lift weights after training, which is something that we do. And I looked around and it was all women and crew new. Like we had taken over the gym.
Lifting weights, you mean?
Yeah. So like Angie comes almost every afternoon and does her own weight thing. Angie was the first trans fighter at Singmanee. We've talked about her before, and you can go on 8 Limbs and read about her.
Good friend of Sylvie's.
She's amazing. So Angie's lifting weights. Caro goes in there and does her own like weightlifting thing. I'm doing whatever Pinu's doing, and then there's this like 14-year-old Korean girl who comes after school. She's doing what we're doing, and then Bai comes in after she's hit the bag and is like doing her own thing, and I'm like, it's all women and crew new. Like we're staying late, like we're the ones getting the work done, and it's all women, and it's our space, and we're not like, no boys allowed. Like if there was a guy, it doesn't matter. But literally he would not matter if he was there, rather than like me and crew new lifting weights afterwards. It's not the same. 5 of us in crew new versus me staying after and doing it is very different.
Yeah, and I there's a dimension of this, I don't know if it's easy to communicate, but Thai family style gyms, like this size of gym with this lineage, they're collections of people from the neighborhood. Like yes, they'll have stadium fighters, but they'll also have somebody who just does something for after school, and they'll have young kids that are training but not seriously yet. And there's the mix of levels, even on the Thai side, is really vast.
Yes.
Like, we think professional gym, you know, check your ego at the door.
The 10 Lumpini fighters.
Totally. That's not the family style gym that produces so much great Muay Thai in Thailand. And what's really interesting about the female changes that are happening at Patron Rung is that they too have this eclectic community thing where Korean girl after school, serious legendary fighter Sylvie, Kiro is like, I fucking love Muay Thai. I'm gonna work myself to the bone.
The woman
with
who comes
4 fights
and does very intense rounds with Pinu of like all elbows, and then just takes a bunch of selfies.
She's a Thai woman, right?
I love it. Like,
but it's a Thai woman, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, the great thing about Crew New is that everyone does the same work.
Yeah.
Like, there's no like, okay, go in the corner and do your thing because you're not serious. Like, everyone does the same thing. And the fact that you can have me and Caro and a 14-year-old girl after school and the woman taking selfies, like the diversity of those motivations, but we're all doing the same thing, is what makes it.
And then there's this other weird thing where, like, the fantasy about the Thai camp and being exposed to the regimen of a professional fighter. This eclectic thing is actually the authentic one, not the like boot camp thing.
Yeah.
Like, in real Thai camps, there's just a full spectrum of people of degrees of seriousness and investment. And then you get like trainers of various degrees of investment. Like, there's no like official, like, I held pads for so and so.
I'm so invested in your development personally.
Yeah. It's very, I don't know. It's interesting to see the female dimension of this on gender developing in the same kind of community sense that the gym itself has, as opposed to, and this could be also valuable, but you go to a more Western-oriented gym that makes its money mostly from training Westerners, where all the women come and they're all fairly similar, right? We're pretty serious female fighters coming from around the world to learn Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And this has a very crazy diversity to it that's not what people usually refer to in diversity.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. Yeah. And this probably has grown out of Sylvie's example, but also like what we did with the female, the Muay Thai Summit not even a year ago, where we brought women from around the world to train with legends in the gym in the Muay Thai style. And it's interesting, women are coming to train with you, but there's not waves of women. It's just these independent types.
Yeah.
Like, the people who are drawn to make the extra trip out to Pattaya are a very particular kind of independent person. Like, Kiro's so independent, she might not have ever even come.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a very, I don't know, it's there's like a filter that goes on, and that the only people that pass through the filter tend to be these like autonomous free people.
Yeah.
It's like how we figured out that at the Muay Thai Summit, really, really amazing women came because we gave almost no time lead in. Like,
so it had to be the type of woman who's like,
who would like get on a plane, like, let's go do this,
take it and do it.
right? And so we got like 14 women who are like, I'd get on a plane and do this crazy thing.
Yeah.
And so the minute they walked into the gym, they were like, heart and soul, tell me what it is and I'll do it.
Yeah.
And every single one was like that. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
So this is a lighter version of that, maybe.
Yeah. And a more stretched out version.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a way to nurture this, to grow it slowly, this tendency. What do you think? Or you're like, I just like it the way it is.
I like it the way it is. I like being surprised by it.
Yeah.
Too. So don't control it. Same as like growth spurts.
Yeah, but you have to feed like this didn't happen by accident.
No, but it's also
Right.
the quality of the gym. The reason that I completely fell in love with it and have been able to grow there the way that I have is because Bumrung and Crew New are so like welcoming and accepting of
Yeah,
oddity.
it's weird because it's not just like welcoming, we'll take any students to Ching. It's more like welcoming in this weird kind of like it's non-judgmental but also regimented.
Yeah.
You know, it's very hard to explain that combination of things that PNU does.
Yeah.
But maybe you said it when you're like, everybody does the same work.
Yeah, it's like you can be who you are or what you are, but listen and work hard. Like,
Totally.
the diversity is outside of the value of listen and work hard.
Yeah. Are you good on that? You seem like
Yeah.
you ran a gas there.
That's good.
Okay.
Go.
Rolling?
Rolling.
Okay. Next topic. Sylvie, take it away.
I have to introduce it. So the other week, I don't know, maybe like
Maybe 2
3
weeks ago? Yeah.
Hippy, who is one of the more amazing fighters ever in the world. He's very small. He never got bigger than 108 pounds as a fighter, but fought everybody and had this incredible, mean, but like fast style. He was like, hey, I'm going to be in Pattaya. I'm going to come by your gym. So I was like, okay, not sure whether he would. He does not come to Pattaya a lot. He's in Bangkok. But he totally showed up at my gym and just fucking jumped in because he's one of these ex-fighters who just cannot help himself. Like, he just has to like jump in when he's excited. And Diesel Noi was there and Yod Kumpan was there. So we just had this like crazy impromptu.
Well, we just talked about how women are starting to
Legends.
like gravitate to the gym. Is weird. Like legends are starting to like just
Totally.
pop in and out of the gym.
It's like the bar that like all the celebrities go to or something.
It's very funny.
But so Hippy wanted to teach me something. He was watching me hit the bag and he was like, everything's good. He's like, everything's good. You have power, you have speed, you have technique, you fight a lot, all of these things. And he's like, but you're missing this thing, which is the like kill shot. And Kevin in our notes refers to this as taking the safety off. And that's a feeling to me, taking the safety off. It's not a like, everything I throw is now like kill shot, kill shot, kill shot. It's like there is a serious danger at some point to when you pull that trigger. You can point the gun and wave the gun and do all kinds of things, threaten with the gun. That's like these other movements that lead to actually firing it. But taking the safety off is the first step in I will fucking shoot someone. And I think that I am missing that in the like feeling emotional drive. And for a very long time, I struggled with like not being polite in the ring or like actually wanting to hurt my opponent. I've written on 8 Limbs about how you actually have to like practice valuing violence in the ring. And so what Hippy was showing me was this kind of like all these things that you already have are with the safety on. So you're never going to shoot anybody. Like how deadly are you with the safety on?
And he's looking at you training.
Yeah.
So he's like, you need to train how you want to fight.
Yeah.
And part of this we think comes out of marathoning, where you train really grueling, beyond even really Thai levels, for many, many months, like the day after a fight or whatnot. Like when you train so much, you just unconsciously develop like long rhythm patterns, right? And he's watching you train and he's like, where's the punctuation? Like, where's the fucking like edge of what you just did?
It's the kind of thing where like someone misses a shot and you go, ooh. Like that's intention. That's the kill
Yes.
shot. And it doesn't have to knock someone out.
Yeah.
But it's the like, ooh.
You can get credit.
I know what that was.
You can get credit
I
for
know
a
what
missed
that
shot,
was.
right?
Totally.
And so he was showing you on the bag, pop, 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 and then kill shot,
Uh-huh.
right? What, you not interested?
Well, he was like, trainers will teach you, like, not every shot is full power because you're using the jab to set up for the cross, right? It's this, like, tactical, like, pop, pop, pop power. But it's still, even when it's taught like that, it still has this kind of, like, combination drill feeling to it. He was showing me how to, like, do this. He insisted it's not a teep, but it's this, like, the ball of the foot stabbing the other person's front leg. It's so painful / annoying, and other fighters do it. If you watch Ramba, he slaps the inside of that front leg, so he's like stinging it all the time, and you're hurting someone already. Like, you're not going light for the sake of going light, but it's basically a, like, I'm juggling you, I'm juggling your mind, I'm juggling your body and annoying you until I can just fucking fire this killer shot. And he sees me throwing with power, and he sees me throwing things that can hurt, but the quality of intention of, like, this is firing into your face, like, this is the gunshot, was missing. And we've talked before about how you have to train aggression, you have to train persistence, like, all of these things that you think of as, like, oh, I'm not a naturally aggressive person. They're skills. Like, nobody's a naturally aggressive person. It's a skill. You can be a naturally aggressive person and be shit at being aggressive in the ring. Like, it's a skill.
Well, also, if you are naturally aggressive because of whatever your life experiences are, it's because aggression is a skill you learned to survive.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's a quality you've developed over repeated training, whether it was unconscious or conscious. Yeah. For many people, you have to train the aggression and the violence. And I guess I was there and I was like watching, and I'm like, to me, it's almost a musical quality. Like, he's like a poet listening to you read a line monotone. And he's like, okay, your enunciation is great, and there's really well-formed words there.
Beauty is pain, pain is beauty, sir. Like, no, it's not. That's not how poetry works.
But, well, yeah, if you said it right, that would be poetry too, right. Because it would be, sir.
Yeah.
He's like, where is the voice in those strikes where it's like, and then crashing it, and it's almost like a, and how do you...
But that's the quality of the difference, is that one is like recitation. Like, you're reciting all of the moves that you have. Yes. And the other one is like fucking saying something. Like, and there are times when I'm like out of gas, dying, getting madder and madder with Pinu because he's so big and he's like pushing me past that limit. And I will throw something that's like, get off of me, in this like, that this will end this exchange. And it usually doesn't, because he's just so big, but like sometimes it can kind of like bounce him off of me or something. And I'm like halfway there when I have that get the fuck off of me, this is gonna hurt you. It has to be a like, don't smash the guy with the pan and run up the stairs.
But how do
shoot him in the head 3 times.
Train that? Like, he wants you to train that every minute.
Because it's the same.
Because it's the music of the techniques.
I talked about this at the Muay Cow Summit, because we had some of our Western women who were at the summit sparring with these Yod Muay Ying best female fighters that we had brought in to work with us, because Western women never get to train with Thai women. We only fight them, and it's terrible that we never get to train with them. Western women, by and large, are way bigger than their Thai counterparts. So some of our women were much bigger than these Thai women that they were sparring, and they went fucking hard. Like, because that's how we spar in the West was part of it, because they're excited was part of it, like just kind of lack of control kind of thing. And I think that when we have this whole discussion about like, Thai spar so light, is like, it's not necessarily physically light, it's emotionally lighter, and then the dominance is real. So when I was correcting the Western women towards what kind of sparring we could do, I was like, don't hit super hard, but perform as though you just ended the fight, right? So you only actually kick the leg about this hard, but then you're like, I just fucking ended the fight kind of thing.
It's like kill shot.
That's how you practice it. So even if I don't get Krenu off of me with the knee that I just threw, I perform as though there's no way you could possibly get up from that, even if he gets up.
But you also emotionally feel
You're like, I have another one for you.
You have to put that emotion in it yourself.
Totally.
It's not just a fake performance. It's honestly, it reminds me very much like musicality, or like in Thai, the accent goes at the end of on the last syllable.
Yeah.
Very often, is that kind of thing that when he's not hearing you, when Dieselmoy is not, Hippy's not hearing the accent, the emphasis on the final syllable, he's like, that's not a word. It's not a thing. And for him, not all fighters have that sensitivity, but he does. What are you laughing about?
This is such I don't know, maybe people like pop culture references when I bring them up. This is maybe a stupid example, but I find it very funny. So, one of the fighters out of my gym, Alex from Italy, he's very lauded by Thai audiences because as a Westerner, he has this Thai quality of what's called Ning, which is being kind of like unperturbed, unaffected, very calm, like no matter what's coming at him, it's almost like none of this is affecting me kind of thing. And the nickname I think he's given himself, but maybe Filippo gave to him, was the Italian Ferrari, which I find stupid because all Ferraris are Italian, but apparently it's like not in that order. But as a joke towards this, and I'm not the same Ning that Alex is, like I'm kind of this opposite, kind of like coming forward, durning, whatever. So to have Alex be the Italian Ferrari, we joke that I'm American Muscle from Fast and Furious. But you have to say it like that.
You have to
say it in the Vin Diesel voice.
Yeah.
Because if you're like...
Say it again.
If you're like, and I'm American Muscle, like it doesn't mean anything.
Totally.
In the same way that not having the kill shot doesn't mean anything, you have to be like American Muscle.
American Muscle. Exactly.
The Italian Ferrari.
So we have to. Part of training, the blessing of training with all these legends, is every legend has a dimension that is just their burning fire. And I think for Hippy, he has this like explosive, like where is this kill shot, and it should be trained
all the time.
Like it's a rhythm, it's a cadence. Yeah. It's like pop, 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 kill, like you want those killing moments.
Yeah. And
there's another interesting dimension about violence, and everybody, if you want to be a fighter, it means you have a positive relationship to violence. A lot of people want to be fighters that don't have a positive relationship to violence. They have a negative one, and they struggle within themselves. And Malcolm Gladwell had I think it was Malcolm Gladwell, maybe not. It was about how there was a study done of people in the military firing weapons, I believe. And they were like 80%, it was something like, I'm just throwing this out, these numbers, 80% of the people firing weapons at the enemy
in actual war,
in actual combat,
yeah,
fire above the enemy. That like, they're not actually trying. They are so conflicted about killing that they're actually just pulling the trigger and firing, let's say, a machine gun over the heads of the enemy. But they're performing the acts of being a soldier. It's not like they're not firing. They have to fire because everyone's firing, right?
And they've had training to fucking kill someone.
To kill,
yeah.
But they're not killing anyone.
Yeah.
And this was a consternation of the military. They're like, well, we have some pretty inefficient military if they're not even trying to actually kill people.
Right, and so most of the casualties and actual killing in war comes down to what, like 5% or 2%?
I think they were saying like 5%.
It's very low.
Like the people who are, the soldiers who are actually doing the killing are a very small percentage of the armed forces. I don't know how accurate this is or anything, but it was a really interesting analogy that, you know, if you're a soldier, the assumption is, and you're firing a weapon, you're actually trying to kill somebody.
Yeah,
but the truth is most of them are not trying to. And it could be this very similar with fighters, is that just because you're in a fight and you're throwing punches and you feel endangered, not every fighter is necessarily even trying to hurt the other fighter.
Yeah, and you don't, as a fighter, you do not have to have a, like, I'm trying to kill my opponent. Like, it's not that severe, but you do have to have a kind of intention towards dominating and winning.
Well, if
the
you
exchange.
do it well.
Like,
If you do it well. I suspect that much like this military example, a lot of fighters don't have that intention.
No, and so you see, like, I really won on points, like the decisionator thing.
The decisionator, yeah.
Favor was making fun.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, there's all kinds of fighters and there's all kinds of motivations. But what Hippy's visit was, what was so interesting about it, and there's some video of his instruction up.
It's on YouTube. It's free. You can watch that whole
thing. Wow, this is missing.
Yeah,
and
there was no like, no, I'm doing that. It was like, yeah, no, that's totally missing.
Totally missing. And it's like a nutrient. It's like you find a nutrient in your diet that was just like, oh, I have no.
No, I totally am like, tink, 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 like, no, fucking, the safety's on.
Yeah,
totally.
And so just to finish up, we're aware of it. You've been aware of it. You've tried to incorporate it. What do you want to do to like feast on this dimension? Like, make this like if Hippy sees you in a year, he's like, yeah, I told her and she did it. Like, how do you want to like incorporate this? Is it just we already said it's not willpower.
No.
You can't be like, do it like you mean it, Sylvie.
When Hippy was showing me how you train this, I totally got it. I'm like, yeah, I understand. It's the same thing with like the eye contact, where at first you can do it for like 2 seconds, and then you can do it for like 4 seconds, and then you can do it for 4 seconds but 4 times, or like that kind of thing. Because it's a feeling and it's hard to capture, it's kind of like a exposure therapy practice where like I'm just gonna have to try to capture that feeling in training as much as possible.
But what is it? It's not just gonna happen, right? How do you make it happen without it being willpower?
It's a combination of willpower and feeling it. I have to remember, like, when I'm hitting this bag, I need to have moments of that safety is off.
It reminds me a little bit like if you're, I always return to like hip hop or something, but if you're like trying to rap like Biggie, you have to have those punctuated beats. You can't just say the words that he uses. You have to kind of like embody. Like if you're going to do those techniques, you have to embody the fighter. You have to have the music of them, right?
Yeah. But I don't want to be imitating Hippy.
Maybe
it might start that way. Or you imitate the violence of Namsak Noi or Karahat. Like they all have their punctuated element. Or start throwing Pinu out of the ring like Namkabon.
Totally. But it's like, I don't know. It also goes back to a really interesting thing. I mentioned this when Hippy explained this to you. When we always tell the origin story of Sylvie and it being the movie Ong Bak, and seeing these moves that she's just never seen a human being move like that, and she was really moved by it, like inspired by it, and that's why we went to the Yellow Pages and found our first Muay Thai gym. Is this my turn?
No, you have to cross a bridge first.
Okay. And one of the things you said was every move can end the fight.
Is intended
to end the fight. And this was Tony Jaa doing his Baran stuff. But you had an original passion, like a pleasure in watching Muay Thai, where you're like, he's trying to end the fight. He's not trying to win the fight. It's like the fight is over. And it's very easy when then actually doing real Muay Thai to just get lost in techniques and doing it well and point fighting and not making a mistake. And it's like, let's get back to the original thought, which is, I'm ending this fight.
Yeah, and I think that comes from me being a kind of person who has very conflicted and very strong reactions and feelings about violence. I've experienced real, true violence that I, for a long time, was like, Muay Thai is not violence because it's 2 people going into it. And then I'm like, oh no, there is violence in Muay Thai, and it's something you have to practice and learn as a skill. But maybe because of my super conflicted past, you turn left at the end of this,
okay.
with violence is this, like, every move is designed to end the fight, is that I immediately recognize something very real about fighting that is not sport necessarily. And it's expressed in Orson Scott Card's book Ender's Game. Serious problems with Orson Scott Card aside, just talking about the book, Ender is chosen to, like, lead this military as a kid because he has this quality already within him. He gets in a fight with a bully at school and practically kills him because he's like, you want to fucking fight with me, we end it. Like, you will never come bother me again if it's gonna be a fight. And so this quality about him, and he's kind of otherwise a quiet kid, like, he's kind of right in the middle of his brother and his sister. His sister's too sweet and his brother's too evil. There was something about that quality, and my family, all of my brothers and I read this book a lot as a kid, and so maybe I, like, pulled it in. My brother's son is named Ender. But it is that, like, everything is meant to end the fight, is like, if you want to make this real, we're gonna make it finish. There's no, like,
but there's something that
I'll do just enough.
Speaks to you. But there's something that speaks to you that drew you to Muay Thai originally like this.
I think because of that conflicted feeling about violence, is that there is no one-sidedness to real violence is one-sided. Real violence is victimizing someone else or these other things. And so if it's like, okay, we're having this exchange and it's gonna end, rather than, like, we'll kind of have this little dance together or something. I don't know.
That's very interesting about fighting Nang Hong is she takes the fight on a pride personal level in a very, like, interesting way. Like, in the final round of that fight, she was just trying to cut you. And
she had already touched my glove, like, okay, I acknowledged that you won, and then she's still trying to cut me.
She's like, okay, you won.
Awesome.
Now I'm gonna cut you.
Totally.
And she just fucking went on elbow bombs on you. And that's not very Thai female at all.
No.
And she's got fucking, like, 8-9 kilos on you, and she's just throwing elbow bombs at you to just cut you. And it's just, but it has that dimension of, like, you know, you took my pride, this is the cost of it in a weird way.
Yep.
Like, this is gonna have a very serious dimension of it. And I'm like, it also speaks, you've also had this message also every time you train with, run into General Tum Kam, who teaches a military form of Muay Thai, which also is designed to end the fight at every strike, or very quickly, right?
Yeah,
because, like, you have multiple assailants, very
like
possible.
Krav Maga being, like, the most recent true martial art that's for the military, so it's like...
Why are you bringing up Krav Maga?
Because Krav Maga is fucking end the fight, like...
Okay, but we don't even know anything about Krav Maga, but we do know about General Tum Kam.
Yeah, but the intention, you saying that because it's a military form of martial art, right. And I'm saying that in the military there's no, like, okay, shake hands, we want, like, I beat you. Like, you want that person to not be able to come back at you.
Yeah.
Like, it's very important to end it quickly.
But General Tum Kam, when he sees you, he's watched your fights, and he's like, Sylvie, elbow like this.
Yeah.
This move, there's no recovery. There's no, he's basically saying that was her name Ellie? Be a little bit like me.
From Let the Right One In.
Let the Right One In. There is, like, Sagat has the same kind of thing.
Yeah, which is, like, embody this kind of brutality.
And then you have to train it. Like, it's very difficult to stretch yourself far enough along the spectrum emotionally, right? And then weave it into your personal expression and style.
Yeah, and then actually do it. It's like, all of it's very hard. But it's something that when you see it or feel it or acknowledge it as a value, it has to be repeatable. It has to be trainable. It has to be brought in. There are things that I don't feel that people have told me. They're like, you do this. And I'm like, I see you, but I don't feel that at all.
You do feel this thing.
I feel this.
You feel it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Because when you are drawn to something, an art, and it speaks to you, it might be speaking to a buried part of you.
Yes.
Like a part that doesn't get full expression, and all you know is that you have a moth flame feeling, and learning the art then suddenly gives permission and body, flesh and bones to something that might have only been just a passing, like might have been kept down quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
But Hippy he's a small dude. He must have been facing people bigger all the time, and like, he probably already had it, but his like, okay, now we flex this muscle, now we build this muscle, must have been a like, I don't have size, so fuck you.
Well, I wonder, because I watch his fights, he does not have a super punctuated, violent, like Ramba does, and he teaches it to his kids. But what happens with these legends is you see that after they stop fighting, their Muay continues in their head. And
they like steep in some quality that just like permeates what they end up being like, this is the value that actually is what I want to keep.
And it might even be something that they themselves didn't fully embody in their career, but as the story of their career and their Muay develops in their head for decades, they purify it and intensify it.
It's their little pearl. Like,
yeah, it is their little pearl, the little sand.
Like when they were fighters, they had their sand, but then after years and decades of like sitting with who they were and what they did, they've got these pearls.
We get that with Dieselnoy. Like, Dieselnoy is like, don't bring your weapons out, be calm, and then we like watched a fight of his, and we're like, you were not calm. He goes, he uppercutted me. He uppercutted me. He like totally. He totally broke the thing that he's like, you have to do it this way. And it's interesting because Kronsak was saying that he had a draw with Dieselnoy. He felt like he actually beat him, and then Dieselnoy like owned him in the next fight. And he's like, in the next fight, Dieselnoy just beat me.
He's like,
he didn't come after me. And that was, I think, Dieselnoy's last fight. But it could be like that was part of the sand that became the pearl for Dieselnoy, is that maybe he in his career was too aggressive in his mind.
This the whole time.
That it could have been like juggling people and then killing them in the fourth round. Yeah. So I don't know. It's one of the more interesting things about the Muay Thai library is you actually get this distillation of a reflection on a legendary career. It's not just how they fought when they were legends.
Yeah.
Okay, that was pretty good. Oh, wait. Okay. So gas station stop. Next, we always try to do one technique segment. There was a little bit on technique just when we're talking about Hippy and building in violence. But we try to focus on something technical that Sylvie's been working on, that we have a nice perspective on. And this is actually 2 techniques that you've been working on in the gym. So how do you want to... Actually, this is a loose thing, so we have to make sure that's stable.
That's where it's been the whole time, so
okay.
I'm putting it back where it was.
Okay. How do you want to dive into this?
Is that a pun?
It could be.
I don't know. So I'll just say what the 2 techniques are, or how do you
maybe start with Nung.
Okay.
We just put up a Muay Thai library session with Nung, who's Napapon.
Mm-hmm. So Nung, in the library, his name is Napapon Giat Sak Chok Chai. I know him as Nung. He was a very good Western style boxer, also Muay Thai fighter, but so he worked with me a lot on punching. And his particular style of like weight transfer and delivering a lot of fucking power, he's got heavy hands, is kind of this rocking, diving forward where like the head and the hand come together.
So basically you're diving in with your head and your hand simultaneously, and the hand leaves the head late.
Yeah.
And you're bringing your weight forward on a step to your front leg, and you're bending that leg.
Yeah.
So everything is coming forward and your head kind of goes offline.
So we call it diving because it's like head first, chin tucked. It's not a like I'm leading with my face kind of thing that sounds like bad punching. When you see it, you'll know what we're talking about, but it's basically connecting. In contrast to Chart Chai and Sagat, they connect the punch to the elbow being stuck to the ribs, and then it kind of comes out at the very last minute from a twist. Nung doesn't twist a lot. He rocks forward more. And Kevin thinks that I'm really like, he's like, I saw some kind of connection. It feels really good to you to do Nung's style, which I'm not going to disagree with him because I think that there is something there, but it does not feel like it's natural to me or like I even do it right ever.
Well, that's just Sylvie, the old critical Sylvie who's like never does anything right.
But I was able to practice it with him and immediately put it in a fight, which is
rare.
As much proof of something being natural to you as exists ever in the world.
And as a fighter, you want to recognize when you see or feel a technique and you have a natural proclivity to it. You can think it's cool, or your body wants to move like that.
Yeah,
those are
like,
important things.
Yeah.
Like Sakmon Kon said,
you do the things you like.
You do the things you like, like in a fight.
Yeah.
And we don't even know, but there's something about Nung's dive that you like on some level.
I think that one of the reasons it works for me immediately is that I tend to leave my ass back. And so diving forward allows me to leave my ass back, whereas that's not the technique. I should be bringing my whole body with me, but twisting, you have to bring the whole thing forward in a much more dramatic way. I have had a hard time closing the distance that way with my striking.
And you actually are not leaving your ass back, but when your head comes forward, your ass necessarily is not as forward as your head.
Yeah.
Right? You're not pushing your butt back.
When you watch Nung do it,
yes,
he is covering tremendous distance and is with his front foot. I don't do that yet, but it's kind of like an in-between from the way that I was already punching to get to where I want to be punching with him. It's like I kind of could bring an element of it in immediately. And it happens to be that this like diving, we call it diving, is also how Tanadet, also in the Muay Thai library, clinch fighter, the way he enters into the clinch is through basically the same kind of dive that Nung throws his right cross with. And
well, let me slow down before we go
go.
to the next technique, because I don't want to leave hands yet.
Okay.
One of the things that
I just spilled on myself. Go.
Oh, sorry, baby. You have a drinking problem. You like that reference?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that maybe not a lot of people know about you as a fighter is that when you were just a baby little fighter, you were hands heavy before you were a clinch fighter. And you have, like, some people have unnatural power in their hands, and your right hand is a fucking cannon. Naturally. Like, when you hit the pad, it's exploding. You're a 100-pound fighter. You hit way above your weight. But your entire history and your development as a fighter is very complicated, because back in the early days, you were very fucking critical of yourself. Very harsh, and you still are, but...
Unlike now.
You're much better now. You're much better.
Yeah.
But one of the difficulties as developing as a fighter was you had ungodly right hand power. So anybody holding pads for you would be like, that's your fucking thing, that's amazing, and they'd compliment you on it, and then you wouldn't have it in a fight, and it made you feel bad about yourself. Like, sometimes being having a supposed strength and then it doesn't show, or you don't do it well under pressure, it can make you feel bad about yourself and actually start to color the feeling of that thing. So suddenly it becomes a weapon that you don't even want to use.
Yeah.
And I can see it still bothers you.
No, it's just part of a perfectionism thing. It's the same problem of like, someone tells you you're smart, and then all of a sudden, instead of being like, I'm naturally smart, you're like, oh my God, they're going to discover I'm stupid.
Yeah. But you,
Awesome.
and it's such a, in the long story, it's such a shame because natural power, like heavy punching above your weight, is a gift, like that almost can't really be taught. Like it's all the little pieces of the body linking up together in very subtle ways. And when you have heavy hands, you have advantages over so many other students that you can't even be instructed to have heavy hands. So that's a long context of this, is that you kind of gave up on your right hand power. You also broke your hand 4 years ago or so, right when you had just knocked out somebody with a right hand, and it just like that stopped that development. And so this has been a very long delayed development of something that you actually are quite naturally blessed with. And what's so interesting about it is Nung's, like you described it, Nung's technique is a very heavy hand technique because the way he brings the body weight and then the relaxed nature of his hand, like he literally punches with loose fingers, it somehow adds power. So you're moving in a direction of a technique with Nung that adds heaviness to your hands, and you're already blessed with heaviness in your hands. So this is a really interesting development in that you could be reclaiming like an underdeveloped pathway.
Yeah, and you were saying that like when you're blessed with heavy hands or a technique or whatever, that it's just kind of a natural alignment or something. That's the thing about his cross or his weight transfer, is that he is forcing an alignment with your head and your hand coming forward together. That is what delivers that power. So there are like trailer hitches, or like how a combination lock like locks into place kind of thing, is that you can kind of like accidentally distort like you
That's okay, baby.
I hate this.
Take your time, because that's what the Muay Thai Bones is about. We take our time with stuff.
So like you have a really nice kick. It's like a powerful kick, but like the technique's not great. Like it's not beautiful, but it's strong. Whatever made it strong is some kind of like linking in your body that you're not aware of. So then to make it more beautiful or more on balance or whatever, you start going on your toe, turning your shoulder a certain way. Like you make some small adjustment.
Tweaking.
That maybe takes the power out of your kick. Like this totally happens.
Yes.
So something along the line of Sylvie in Master K's basement with a powerful right cross and fucking 254 fights in Thailand, somewhere in there, different alignments of like tweaking and like it's like you're working on a car. It changes alignments and you lose power, you gain power, you lose balance, you gain balance. Like all of these things are micro adjustments that you never get the like perfect tuning. But like when you're tuning a violin, it doesn't stay in tune forever.
Yeah.
Like you have to keep retuning it.
Totally.
And so there's something about the levels of like where the hand rests and how it comes forward with Nung's technique that one was immediately
you had affinity
a version
for it,
of it was able to come into the ring with me, and I felt it enough that I could bring it into training and make it repeatable.
Right.
It's still not what he's doing, but
you're
it's
on the
what I'm
path.
doing,
Yes.
and it kind of like is pushing in that direction, which is exciting. And you want to say that it's similar to Tandet, or you want to stay on the hands?
Oh boy, so like bossy. I don't know. I'm just developing.
Women can't be bossy.
We're just having a conversation. I just didn't want to blow through the hands story.
Yeah, and I don't want to bring up Tandet if you're not done talking about the hands.
Okay.
You've seen me punch more in fights now. Like my Kartchuk fight was like all right hand.
Right? That was you just like tracking down like a tiger with a right hand, like a really hand-heavy person at a time of pretty big intensity.
Yeah.
I was very like, I don't know, I was very impressed. Like, it's cool to see you have this liberty about it. And so we have a plan. When we go to Chiang Mai to fight, you've been training with Tanadet in clinch. We're also gonna see about having you keep returning to Nung and keep like train with him an hour, go back to the gym, work on it, Sylvie version, not Nung version, Sylvie's version, because you have to find your own version, and then you go back and you calibrate with him and you let him work with you from wherever you got. And so there's like this dialogue that you develop. This is actually something that you did in the early days of New York. You would like train by yourself, and then you'd go take a private with somebody and train by yourself. And I guess that's kind of what's happening here with this cross, which is kind of interesting. And in the story of this whole thing, you broke your hand, you fractured your wrist. I don't know, how long ago was that?
6 days? I don't know.
Is that only
Not
6
long.
days
It's
ago?
not been long, no.
Yeah. So while you're working on your right cross, you actually have you probably have a hairline fracture in your wrist, which is actually making you get even more in the groove in the technique, right? Because if you throw the hand wrong, you could fracture that in a more extraordinary way. Why are you laughing so much?
Because there's this interesting thing that I wrote about this on 8 Limbs actually many years ago, which was how to deal with like the pain of your shins, which when you first come to Thailand and start training hard and fighting and going back to training and all these things where you're not like just training after work, people are like, my shins are fucked. Like people just completely are not prepared for how consistently your shins hurt. They think that something's wrong. And you're like, no, they just hurt for like
Ever.
6 months.
Yeah.
And then they hurt less for like 8 months. Slightly less than that for like a year. And now I just don't feel anything on my shins anymore. But in Thai, or Thai people use English and they call them baby legs. They're like, you have baby legs when they're all mushy and like bruised. But when I wrote this article, I was talking about how do you kick on painful shins. And there, you can put like a soccer shin guard on it to like create a hard buffer to kind of protect it. Or what I discovered helped me is you just kick through the pain. It's like when you have a pain in your tooth and like biting on it actually makes it feel a little bit better, like because it increases it and then you like release it or whatever. Is that the pain in my hand, like it's just this like mallet of gonna break.
Mallet.
It's like just fucking like hit them with the cartoon mallet. Not with bad technique, but like just hit through it kind of thing. That's why I'm laughing.
Right.
It's because instead of like, oh, it's broken, now I can't use my right hand for
now you really
9
use
months.
it. Now like, you really use it.
Great.
It's
now
like
I just have
itching.
to use the cartoon mallet for 6 months.
It's important to note that in that article you were very careful to talk about how that just kicking through bad sore shins is a issue of experience, because there is as you say in the article, you might have changed your mind, you wrote it many years ago, you're like, there is a point when you have really beat up shins where you should not kick on it.
Yes.
You quote Gansak.
Because it's
like,
just going to make it worse.
You just don't kick on it. And I think in the story you were like, well, I hadn't been kicking on it, right? And it still was sore. And you had just reached this point where you're like, I've given it enough of a break. Now I'm just going to kick through it.
Yeah.
And this is just a question of experience, of knowing your body. If you're knowing when you're going to ruin something and when you're going to toughen something.
Yeah, like with
right?
the way that my hand is right now, going full rest is not going to heal it. Like,
well,
not
without
answer.
it being crazy rest.
Yeah.
Like a cast or something.
So I'm not trying to break it more. Like, I'm not intending to break it more. But there's going to be some trial and error in the process of still using it while it's in this state.
And the weirdest thing is, well, I don't know if it's how weird it is, but you're actually punching more than ever in fights.
Yeah.
With a fractured wrist.
I think that makes sense. I think that's kind of like how it's the same thing with the like sore tooth that you like bite down on.
Yeah.
Is you're like, it's just gonna hurt. So you just kind of like bite down on your mouthpiece and go kind of thing. I talked about this, I think, in my post-fight update about my hand.
I actually didn't listen to your post-fight update. Your last fight?
So I just had 2 fights, and in the first one, I hurt my hand again. And I was thinking to myself in that fight, okay, Sylvie, don't try to not hurt your hand, because you will definitely fuck it up. Like, you'll break it, full stop, if you try not to hurt it. Just accept that you're going to hurt it and go with it. Like, this is going to hurt. It was okay. Like, I didn't re-injure it. I didn't further injure it. It just hurt from what it is. And I think that that's an important distinction in understanding whether you're making yourself worse or not, is like, don't try to protect it. Do what you're doing within, like, reason.
And we should be clear, when the reason why I'm pretty sure it's fractured, we haven't gone to the hospital, Sylvie's not going to go.
It's got this horrific hump on it right here that's not natural. Igor.
Is that when you originally broke this 4 years ago or so, it took about 6 months to heal, which probably meant you re-broke it a few times in fights, like fractured. We're talking about fractured.
I remember times I would like hit the bag and be like, oh,
you just set it back. So we don't want to recommend anything to anybody. Like,
not a doctor.
Not a doctor. And we don't need advice either. But if you take this path, it could involve longer healing times.
Yeah.
Like your wrist or hand might be fucked up for the next 6 or 8 months. Whereas if you'd cast it, it would probably be like 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Oh, that's such a long time.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's not Sylvie style. Okay, so now we did this whole, like, what is that? Detour. Nung's diving, like, he has this really interesting dive where he's like bringing his chest forward and his head forward. As Sylvie was saying, Sylvie also trains long clinch with Tanadet. He's in the library. It's the most amazing clinch style that we've ever run into. It's incredible. And she's been trying to incorporate it for a long time now and always admired him. He has a clinch entry that's remarkably similar to the chest and head movement.
Well, you talk about this, because I actually didn't see it. You're the one who pointed out to me that that's how he enters, because I clinch with him. So I'm aware that he's coming in, but it's like, whoa, when he's coming after me. So I didn't actually see it until you pointed out.
But you voiced over the video, right?
I saw it when I watched the video.
Yeah.
But I was not aware that he was entering like this, and you pointed out that he has this kind of like, it's almost like a right cross.
Oh yeah,
dive.
that it's like he's an orthodox fighter, and Sylvie generally grabs with her lead arm, which is very kind of common as a clinch fighter. She has a problem in that she grabs with the lead arm and then she often will turn away and overturn and get out of position. Like, her grab is a little too over-rotated. It's something she's worked with for a long time. Tanadet, he's a big Muay Thai fighter. He almost throws a right cross with his head coming offline to the opposite shoulder, but instead he makes it a clinch grab for the neck instead of an actual cross. And it's remarkably similar to what Nung's cross looks like. And what's cool about it is, because you're coming with your back arm, you're squaring up. You're not going to over-rotate on your grab. So it counters a problem you can have if you're using your lead arm. And you're taking your head offline. So when you're entering as a orthodox fighter against an orthodox fighter, you are susceptible to possible lead elbows.
Yeah.
Like, by him bringing his head forward and offline into the collarbone, he is kind of, normally you would like cover, right, for the elbow, but instead he reaches across and he hides behind his arm.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too, because Satan Wonglek, who is also in the Muay Thai library, also an incredible clincher, he and Tanadet fought. That was amazing.
Many times they fought.
Satan Wonglek is left-handed. So as a southpaw, he actually throws his left cross and then grabs with that same arm.
So he does the same thing.
So if you're like nailing someone with a right cross or grabbing them, they're basically going to be going like this for the right cross no matter what. And if you get someone a turtle, they're so easy to grab.
Although
like
you are stuck with outside position if you do that.
Yeah, you can swim in pretty good though.
Yeah, then you have to swim in.
Or if you make it there in time, you've made it inside. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm now seeing you do this. I think you've done it in fights now. I see you do it when you're training. it's really weirdly natural to you to do this. And you spent some time in Southpaw, so that might have helped. You spent a year fighting in Southpaw. But I'm interested in this like weird coincidence that this general like diving across your body, it's not really even a technique. This motion has found its way into your training.
Well, I only just thought of this just this very instant, so this is not necessarily going to lead anywhere.
Probably awesome.
But after I trained with Nung for the Muay Thai library, I was very frustrated with our sparring because I just got nailed in the face like a gazillion times. And I said to you after that, I need to start using Karahat / Namsak Noise like duck in. They do this little like diving under the wave thing. Similar.
It is similar. Matter of fact, that whole chest forward movement that Nung uses reminds me of Karahat's relationship of he has a rising chest movement, but there's this thoracic kind of like drifting forward. And what do you mean? What are you laughing?
Thoracic.
I don't know. What else you want to?
Totally.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Totally
like you're a praying mantis or something. Yeah, totally. Like a praying mantis. Thoracic, like the alien queen.
Totally.
So,
the alien queen is way more like head forward.
Yeah, she is more head forward, but she's got some weapons up front.
Maybe I'll think of her.
Ever think of doing that way?
You've been deleted. Congratulations.
Never mind. Inside joke. It's not even a technique, it's a body, like a gesture, almost. Sylvie,
yeah, I don't
pure
know.
silence.
It's like how you're going to start strutting or something. Like, you don't change the way you walk, you just like add a little bit of a swagger.
Also, what's kind of interesting about this is, I don't want to characterize it only as a weakness, but as an orthodox fighter, your lead foot, right, is kind of in the hole against another orthodox fighter. Like there's nothing in front of it really. Stepping forward with that leg for a kick or for a cross has long been very difficult.
Yes.
Like everyone is like, step, Sylvie, step, step, for whatever reason.
And I'm like, not gonna do it.
Or I thought I was stepping. I thought I was stepping.
I am stepping.
Exactly. Crew Thailand, who's at Santai Muay Thai.
Sylvie, you've literally talked to nobody at this party. I'm flirting.
Exactly.
Crew Thailand.
Crew Thailand, who's in the Muay Thai library, definitely check. He has such beautiful Muay. But he's like step on every single strike. There's no strike where you do not take a step. But this is the thing, is like this is something you've been at war with yourself for a very long time. We always say, it's not willpower. You've told yourself, step, Sylvie, step, a million times. It doesn't help. It makes it worse. There is something about this dive, whether it's whether it's Tanadet's clinch entry or it's Nung's cross, that is allowing you to step in a hole that's a fucking black hole for you.
This is the thing that's amazing about working with so many different people. Legends, crews, just trainers, ex-fighters, whatever the thing is that everyone has a thing that they use as the key to what it is that they're doing. So going all the way back to Master K, who had been training Westerners in like Virginia and New Jersey for
decades,
20 years by the time I met him, he was like, lean back on kicks. And all these fucking keyboard warriors, when my videos started being seen by other people, were like, don't lean back, blah, 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 blah. And even then I understood he's saying lean back to get your hips engaged. You don't have to tell a Thai engage your hips like their hips go. To get a Westerner to engage their hips, they have to lean back. Nung is telling me to take my hand and put it on my ear like this in order to put my hand here for the punch, because if it's here, the trajectory's all off. It doesn't matter whether your hand is cupped on your ear or not. That's his little key to get me to connect the whole thing. Connecting your elbow to your rib with like sagat. All of these things are like, that's the trick you use to get the whole thing to lock into place.
But not everyone can respond to the same trick.
No, it's like telling someone to choke up on the bat.
Like,
some people are going to swing like shit when they choke up on the bat.
But I don't want people to think we're like, you have to lean back on your kick, because if you tell some people to lean back on the kick, they're not going to engage their hips.
No,
everything
they're
will be
already
wrong.
leaning back.
Everything will be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, you should not be leaning back on your kick. But the way that Master K was teaching it was lean back so your hips come forward.
But that's what I'm saying, is people are like, step forward, step forward, step forward.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself to step forward?
Yes.
Is track the foot or lean forward
connect
or
your
connect it
hand
to your head.
To your head. Yeah. And for some reason, Nung and Tanadet are keying on the same body movement that is getting your lead foot to step in that hole.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because you've tried to force yourself to do it.
They are very different fighters. And they use the same
You
thing.
cannot even imagine a more different set of fighters almost. But this is the cool thing, and I'll say this because Sylvie can't. There is no person alive that has been exposed to more high-level Muay Thai instruction and theoretical conception than Sylvie. No Thai and no Westerner, because the encyclopedia, the broad spectrum of techniques that she's been exposed to, like 20 ways of kneeing, 17 ways of elbowing, that her brain is able to match up similarities of components of technique that appear unrelated.
Yeah, it's like when you have studied multiple languages and you start to see roots.
Very much so. And there is a root between Tanadet's clinch grab and Nung's cross that also is somewhat in the family of Namsak Noi and Karahat's dip-in. And you would never have come upon that family resemblance without being exposed to 100 other techniques, so that they stand out from each other.
Yeah, what's the Greek word that my name comes from?
Hule, I think it's
yeah,
hule.
Sylvie, hule. Wouldn't think those are the same, but then when you go down to it, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
It totally makes sense.
You would not be like, oh, Karahat and Nun. And then
Totally.
you're like, no, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, this is an exciting thing if you watch Sylvie's fights. It's something for to watch her develop. It's just starting now. I really like that Tanadet dive in, though. You were doing it with him. You were training with him yesterday, was it?
Yeah.
And you were totally doing it over and over again. And what's so nice is it solves that lead elbow thing. That whole, like, some of these girls are waiting with their lead elbow. And if you just pull that head like this and you're crashing in, either with the grab or the cross, there's nothing to hit. It's very protected.
It is one of my great joys, like top 5 joys in life, to use someone's technique against themselves.
Really?
I like it very much.
Well, what are you talking about?
Well, if I put Tanadet in the long clinch
Because
and
you were...
he can't get out,
Yeah.
it makes me really, really happy. There are times that Pinu will teach me something and then I'll use it against him and he's like annoyed, and I'm like, if you don't want to suffer from it, don't teach it to me. Because there are many times that I've not been able to do the thing that people are telling me to do. So to like turn it against that person is...
You were doing things against Namsak Noi too that he had taught you.
Yes. And then you get to yell, technique. Technique Namsak Noi.
So, that's pretty cool, baby.
Yeah.
All right, next subject.
Go.
Next subject. Who is that said they want to hear about diet? Can you
You're
look real
not
quick?
looking, I look.
Yeah.
You introduce it.
Yeah, but I want to get their name first. Another person said they had something that they'd be interested in. We can't always do what a suggestion is, because we have to be able to be like, well, this is something we could talk about, and have to have an affinity for what's going on in our lives. But
Claire Tapp
Claire Tapp is about
would like to hear
nutrition?
about nutrition again.
Okay, so Claire Tapp on Facebook was like, I'd like to hear about nutrition. We've talked about how Sylvie's, what we do, her diet is what we call 1+1 keto, which is pretty hardcore keto, and fasting every other day. And she's been doing the 1+1 part since January. So this is like 9 months in, 10 months in. This is crazy. And we're not going to go into great detail. You can see on the form, on the roundtable form, there's a whole sub-forum that's devoted to Sylvie's dietary approach, and I'm a 1+1 keto too. We're just going to take a little like slice off of this. And one of the most interesting things about this fasting every other day and keto is the days fasting often are better in terms of energy, which nobody believes.
Yeah.
And Sylvie has fought fasted because it's every other day, right?
So you have a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, but you were actually fighting more than 50% of your fights. It was really weird. There was like 8 fights in a row you fought fasted or something like that. You've gotten to the point where you prefer to fight fasted.
I do.
Which is so crazy because you're a cardio monster. Like, you fight in a, like, I'm gonna burn my opponent out way. Persistence hunting, but also clinching is pretty exhausting. Like, you expend a lot of energy. And you honestly, when we're coming on a fight and it happens to be an eat day, you're like, just talk about this a little bit, baby.
So we, just by coincidence, I had most of my fights for like 8 or 9 in a row were all fasted. And the first few, because it was going from having never experienced that to experiencing that, it was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. I felt like I was not as critical of myself in the moment in the fight, like these mental differences in terms of like I was aware of what I was doing, but I was not freaking out about what I was doing, or I could like be like, okay, that's not working, let's change that, instead of like, why aren't you going?
We should say you were drawn to keto originally because we wanted to make changes to your mental flexibility.
People ask me about
resilience.
Energy and glycogen stores and training and all of these things. The degree to which I care about my energy and physical whatever on keto is so small. I don't care. If I lost energy on keto, I'd stay keto because of what it does for my mental and emotional stability and awarenesses. So I don't lose energy, but even if I did, worth it for what it's doing mentally. Because the mental part is so important to me, when I started, just again by coincidence, having fights on eat days
recently,
like I had maybe like 4 in a row or 3 in a row or something. I was kind of like not into it.
Yeah, right.
Part of it is just the annoyance of like, what am I going to eat? When am I going to eat? Like,
it's true.
That's very annoying.
That's true.
And I had for a very long time before going keto, and then when going keto, and all of these things, like experimenting with how many hours before, what kind of food to eat, blah, blah, blah. So I had experience in that. I wasn't starting from scratch, but like, I just did not feel as sharp or as like, I guess sharp is really the way to say it. If you put the two on side by side, which one I like fighting fasted better. So what we've been doing is eating breakfast in the morning, and then I just won't eat the rest of the day, so that I'm like half a day fasted by the time I fight.
Even on your eat day.
Even on my eat day.
And then you often won't even eat after the fight because you're just
it's hard to eat after a fight. Yeah, I don't know if people experience this also. I know there are people who are like, let's go house a whole pizza after a fight. I'm not one of those people. I'm not really that hungry after a fight. I'm not really that hungry after exercising or a run. But when I first was fighting fasted, I was sleeping after fights, which I never could do. And then that went away. So that was like a temporary thing.
Well, it was that you were very relaxed.
Yeah.
Like you could sleep because you were not revved up mentally.
That could be. Yeah.
That's the kind of the feeling I had.
Yeah. But
did we lose the train of thought there?
I guess what we're trying to talk about nutrition and how it relates to fighting. There are not, and I've experimented a lot, there are not certain foods that have ever made that big of an impact on how I fight.
as much as fasting.
No foods having an impact on how I fight has been pretty big.
And I think it's really important for people. There is alternate day fasting. There's window eating. Intermittent fasting. What's really important about the example that Sylvie's had is she's hardcore keto. And the reason why that's really important is that when you're keto, and she was keto before she even started 1+1 keto, you train your body to feed off of its own fat stores. It's not looking for sugars, and it takes about 3 or 4 weeks for the body to go through what they call fat adaptation, which is basically the body starts moving away from looking for sugar and it starts looking for fats. So, there's not a lot of data on this, but there's theory that the longer you're keto, more years, the more fat adapted, the more optimized you come for burning fats. So Sylvie's been keto for a while, and so when she fasts, her body's not looking for fuel. It's not looking. If you're
not fat adapted and you're like, I listened to what Sylvie said about fighting fasted, I'm going to try fighting fasted. Your body's not doing what my body's doing.
No,
if you're not.
Because your body on the day you fast, if you eat carbs, let's say you eat rice and you eat clean like a vegan diet or something.
Sweet potato.
Yeah, but when you fast that next day, your body is going to be looking for sugar, and it can experience an energy drop. The reason why there's no energy drop for you is because your body you've got, as they say, your body carries 30,000 calories around minimum with it at all times. So when on the day that Sylvie's not eating, the gas tank is just switched over to, okay, now I just eat the calories that are already in the body. So you're fasting in terms of putting food in, but your body is full of fuel.
And I also train every day, so my body is used to training fasted.
And it probably, because you train fasted every other day and you train very hard, it is probably becoming quite efficient at converting energy under like very adverse circumstances, way beyond what you'd experience in a
Again,
fight.
we're talking about energy levels and physical and all of these things because that's what people ask about. But really, the thing that matters is mentally how I feel on keto and training and fighting, and having that. You've talked about this, that what fasting does to the body when the body is like not fed, it actually goes into more peak awarenesses, maybe because in our ancestry you'd be hunting, like you haven't eaten in a while, you're looking for food, you're like kind of more aware.
My little private thought is that if I don't think keto is for everyone, but it might be for people whose ancestors have passed through famine or had to get through hard times when food wasn't readily available, or is feast and famine. But if you think about it, like just animal states, when an animal hasn't eaten for a while, it's all men on board when like you either have to make sure you're not prey or that you can catch prey. Like that's when you need to eat. You need to survive. And I have a feeling that when you're fasting regularly, you are triggering optimal response states and maybe even awareness perception states. And that when you get into a fight or flight mode, which is what happens in a fight, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is pumping. You're triggering those instincts. When you're fasting, I have a feeling those kind of like triggers, those ancient triggers, are even further sharpened.
Yeah, it also like just in a philosophical sense unlinks your state from your proximity to food. So if you eat 6 meals a day, 3 meals a day, whatever the thing is, you will totally get people who maybe because of how they eat, they literally have a blood sugar thing where like if they haven't eaten since morning, they're like crashing. But even mentally, you're like, I had a late lunch and so now I'm too full, or I didn't have lunch and I've only eaten since this morning and so now I have no energy. Like, being concerned about when you ate or what you ate or any of these things mentally has an effect of like, oh, I'm so tired because I haven't eaten since whatever.
Yeah.
The way that I fast and eat, I have no coupling between when I ate and how I feel.
It's very weird.
At all.
It's very weird.
There's no like, oh, I'm tired because I didn't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm tired because I fucking just did
You're
the worst workout ever.
But you're used to thinking along a cause and effect of like what you put in your mouth affects where you are mentally, like 30 minutes later or an hour later. And when you're fasting every other day, it's really weird.
Not that connected.
Well, it might be if you're taking like eating a lot of sugar, like quick burning fuels.
Yeah.
There could be like ups and downs.
Even if you're like a bagel and coffee every morning type of person, you'll be okay. Like, I was laughing because I was thinking of this South Park where they get snowed in to the school and they immediately go to cannibalism like within like 4 hours, and they're like, they've already eaten some people and they're like looking at who they have to eat next. It's like they couldn't even wait overnight kind of thing. It's like, you'll be okay. Like, even if you're not fat adapted and you can't eat for 6 hours, you'll be okay.
It's very weird though, because that you've gotten to the point that you actually like, I'd rather fight fasted. Like, it's not just that you're okay now. You're like, I feel slightly optimized. I don't know. It's an interesting development. So we're talking about nutrition a little bit. Not a big theme, but another thing, change of subject, but in the nutrition realm, another thing that we've, everything good? Started doing is taking gelatin.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
Right? Sylvie's put collagen in her coffee before as a stretch, but just in general, we're experimenting, both of us, with taking gelatin. Now it's yak bone gelatin from Healthilicious, a great resource for keto. In Bangkok. We both take it differently. I put mine in heavy cream for 40 minutes, and it makes like a cream of wheat kind of cereal thing. Gelatin, there's no...
It's super gross.
It's so good. It's so good. Put chocolate. I put unsweetened chocolate powder, heavy cream, and 2 tablespoons of yak bone gelatin, and it just, it's so
like,
good.
It's like when your grape nuts get soggy finally.
Yeah, just like that. And it and a couple drops of monk fruit, but I don't want it too sweet. But anyways, that's how I do it. You make a Jello. You put the gelatin in with hot water, cold water?
I let it bloom with cold water, and then I add lemon juice. But I don't let it turn into a full Jello. It's basically
Are there
like,
still kernels in it a little bit?
If people are familiar with like bubble tea, it's kind of like that. It's just it's beads.
It has beads in it.
Beads.
And the reason for the lemon juice, besides having a nice flavor, is that you need to take vitamin C with your gelatin or collagen, because that helps your body use it, makes it more bioavailable. But this is the interesting component of it. Is one reason why we wanted you to take gelatin was to make sure that you're feeding your tendons and ligaments, making sure that all the connective tissue is strong, because you put so much wear and tear on your body through your training and your fighting. And it seems like a really good idea on this diet. Like, there's another dimension of this, is when you're taking gelatin, you're kind of participating in the part of the primal diet, which is like eating cartilaginous stuff that would be if you were eating an animal, like a bone or skin or connective tissue.
Suck that marrow out,
Yeah, I don't know does marrow have gelatin in it?
No, but it's the whole
but it's that whole thing. There's
everything.
Pieces of the animal that are not just the like meat, and that the body gets basically the material by which connective tissue is fashioned.
Our bodies are actually totally like Highlander, where like you have to like take someone's soul to add to your soul. Is like If you want
Vegans are gonna love this.
If you want good collagen, eat collagen. If you want to improve your liver, eat liver. Like, you eat the thing of what you're trying to improve.
Rolling.
Rolling.
We had a little technical difficulty as it happened. Oh, Jesus, that just sounded like it was like digitized. So we're not sure how much we lost of the last little bit. Might have been a couple minutes, maybe more. So I'm just going to go right back to the last break that we had, which was we started talking about how there's scientific evidence that female athletes at the time of their cycle, when estrogen is rising, their ligaments, their tendons, I believe, no, I think it's their ligaments. I was saying tendons and ligaments become more susceptible to knee injury in particular, and that there are track athletes, like high-level track female athletes, often when they go into track season, when they're really training hard and competing a lot, will take birth control to keep the estrogen down. And we were saying that maybe out of sheer coincidence, or maybe there's some kind of dimension to this, 3 Western female fighters, very serious female fighters, had freak knee injuries, right? All at the same time, like all at different parts in the country. And we're not saying this was because of that female athletes can be prone to knee injury when estrogen is high, but it could be.
Yeah.
And part of taking collagen or gelatin, there's I went Googling around, there's a theoretical basis by which taking collagen or gelatin could improve the resilience of ligaments and tendons. And if there is this weakness in female athletes, it makes sense to buffer against it. It's like preventive, right? To supplement, right? So, I don't know, you've had really healthy experiences.
I've been very lucky, and it definitely doesn't seem like it would hurt ever to be supplementing that way. And the alternative of going on hormonal birth control, all the shit that comes with that is far more complicated than just adding collagen.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that balances out or not. Yeah. Like, but it's something I've never heard discussed. Like, women come from all over the world with great ambition to train hard, fight hard in Thailand. Many come for a year or more. You come to a new culture, your diet is changing, right? Because you're just in another food set. Yeah. And I don't know, it's kind of like, it's something that one should think about.
Yeah. And given all the unknown variables, adding something that is a probably good variable is good.
And you're just giving your body the bricks to build the material, the connective tissue, yeah. Which seems like it would be a pretty good thing. I don't know if there's ever any drawbacks to it. There are other, if you're not going to be like, I'm going to get some yak bone keto stuff, there are other sources of gelatin and collagen. What would some of those be? There's bone soup, right?
Yeah, a lot of people make their own bone soup.
Well, I'm talking about for people in Thailand visiting. Like, most people don't have even a hot stove.
You can eat chicken feeder.
Yeah.
It's full of collagen.
I didn't even think about that.
You can't just have them in the soup. You have to actually eat them.
Which is a little bit of like an intense thing. But isn't there like bone soup too? Like the Chinese soups that you get?
Yeah.
Am I asking you this is not the right thing?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how long the bones are in there, or how the qualifications are for how dissolved they have to get. I don't know.
But you can also just get some Jell-O at the store. Isn't that the same? Even though
totally.
It's like sugar,
Totally.
Is usually, or sugar-free stuff. But yeah. That too can be a source,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And you can order it from Health Delicious, which is what we do if you're in Thailand. They have both a powdered collagen that just dissolves very easily into like coffee, or you can get the gelatin, which is what we've been taking, which is more of a textured, like making gummies, or you eat it raw, which is crazy. Kevin like crunches on it, and it's like eating popcorn seeds.
Yeah, it's like eating popcorn seeds, like the part that didn't pop.
You hear how he says that as though that's an awesome thing that everyone understands.
You don't have a like a fond memory
I hate that.
of like.
They get stuck in your teeth.
No, but you would be like watching a VHS, like a tape, and you're having your popcorn. Yeah, totally. And you're like, I don't want to get up and get more popcorn, right? And then you got the salt at the bottom. That's not a fond memory of you?
I don't like the bottom.
What would you do? Just put the bowl down?
I think I'm done.
You'd be like, Shane, get me more popcorn. Ma! Milo! All right, so that's our dietary nutrition segment. Hopefully we didn't repeat ourselves too much, right? Hey, as you can tell from the last segment, we had a bit of a technical problem. Sylvie's mic failed.
Technical malfunction.
Technical malfunction. We get these on these long things. We're still perfecting Muay Thai Bones like setup, but we decided to keep that segment and the ones that followed just because the conversation was so good.
What we do is real. We're not super edited highlight type people.
No. So we apologize. I tried to like play with the volume levels. Like Sylvie's voice is basically coming through my mic, so I had to jump her little voice up.
Kevin was like, look out your own window.
So we apologize for the roughness of what follows, but it's part of the Muay Thai Bones experience.
And the conversation was good, so salvage it, right?
Totally.
Yep.
And so thank you everybody who supports us on Patreon, because we're going to go out and buy another better mic. And Sylvie's sweet little voice is going to come through perfectly on the next one.
We're going to get one that alters your voice, and I'm going to have like Arnold Schwarzenegger voice for our podcast. Or kidnapper voice.
Kidnapper.
Undecided.
All right. Next segment. Oh, it's so pretty. We did this this was also on the last Muay Thai Bones, with the sun at this hour just like shooting through the car, and green everywhere in like a mountain in a valley. So this is not going to be a regular feature of like movie reviews, but we have done movie stuff before, right?
We watch movies.
We did Captain Marvel we did in a podcast. We watched 2 documentaries, partly because Simon Mulvaney is here shooting for a possible preliminary documentary, a full-length documentary for Sylvie. But one of these we watched before he even came.
Simon is who did the Under the Rope.
Yes, good point. Yeah, which is a gorgeous film. Definitely go see that. It's on our YouTube channel with Thai subtitles. The 2 movies that we watched were Free Solo, right?
Yeah.
And which is about Alex Humboldt, I think his name is. Alex, we'll call him. I remember Alex for sure. And then the Dawn Wall. And they're both free climbing documentaries, right?
So
maybe you need to help me on this.
Rock climbing. In one, it's climbing completely without ropes. In the other, you have ropes for safety, but you can't use the rope to assist
Right.
you, really.
And they're both climbing. I think Dawn Wall was made in 2017, and Free Solo, I think, came out this year.
And they're climbing the same
El Capitan.
but on different routes, which is like completely different. We were like, oh, it's the same mountain, but it's like completely different.
Well, Alex is climbing an easier route, but he has no rope, so that if he slips one time, he dies, literally. Just dies. And the other guys are a much more difficult, one of the most difficult climbs in the world, but they have ropes that catch them if they fall, and they fall a lot.
And you do it in like segments.
Yeah. So both of these are like incredible, like physical, mental feats, And part of the reason why we watch these documentaries is there is no documentary storytelling of fighters like this.
Yeah.
And because we just were discussing 250 fights, because you're really kind of like on your own plateau of experiences in terms of numbers of fights and the kinds of things you're aiming for, you have to draw inspiration from other extreme people.
Yeah, and it's not a like substitute. They're very, very good similarities. So looking to extreme athletes like ultra runners,
Like Goggins,
like
we write about.
X Games people, or these mountain climbers. It's not like that's kind of like what I'm doing. It's very much
You
like
you
the
feel
mentality and the difficulties and the fucking like bleeding fingers to cover 6 inches of rock that you're like clinging to. Feels very like exact.
This is really interesting because I don't do the training, right? I'm not in Sylvie's experience. So I'm sitting there watching, and we don't want to like, in this movie this happens, in this movie that happens. It's not really a film review. I'm watching this and I'm feeling a great sense of connection where I'm like, oh, these people are just pushing themselves in so many ways, physical, technical, emotional, almost spiritual. And I'm like, wow, this is very similar to what I see in Sylvie. And then it's another level for me to hear from you, yeah, this is exactly what this is. Like, I can guess that might be like that, but you're telling me, you're like, this is right exactly on it. And what is that? What are we talking about? Like, in Don Wall, his fingers were bleeding, and he's like, they made a big point that he's like trying to grab this, like, they literally say like razor blades. It's like a little tiny crevice of an edge of a rock that he's trying to jump to.
You're holding your whole body
With this
with your
little tiny
fingers.
thing. And he's like missing it, and his fingers are bleeding, and he literally takes days off in a hanging tent on the wall so his fingers will heal just enough so he can do it. Was that a scene that really connected to you, or what aspects of these things where you're like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing?
There are immediate elements like that, which is, I was just talking about my hand. Like,
Your broken wrist, yeah.
there's no, I'm going to take 6 weeks off to heal this up and then come back and maybe it'll be better kind of thing. It's like, you have 2 days to see whether the swelling goes down enough that you can grab that fucking grip. Like,
Totally.
you're on a mountain. There's no like come down and heal up and then go back up. Like, that's insane. Nobody's like.
Although there was that one scene where they were like practicing the run, and he's like, I think my rib popped out, and he's like, he just goes into the emergency room and they pop it back in, and he's like back on the
comes
mountain.
back
That's very similar to what you do.
It's the kind of thing where like it's not that literal thing, but it's the obsession and the tenacity and the like, just fix this one thing so I can get back to it. And the one with Alex we watched longer ago, so it's less in my memory.
Free solo.
Free solo, but explaining to people why you fight and what your motivations
that was a good
are,
part.
whatever the thing is, like, nobody ever understands. Even people who kind of understand don't understand.
Yeah.
And then there are people who do. And like in the movie we just watched, The Dawn Wall, Tommy goes and like has been obsessing about this, making a route for himself. The route doesn't exist. And a guy who he doesn't know and who doesn't even do the same kind of climbing, he's a boulder climber, which is like 30 feet in the air ever, contacts him and he's like, hey, let's do this together. Do you need a partner? They don't know each other. Like, they're not like childhood friends. That's usually what you get with these X Games people who have to have like massive trust in each other, is that they like came up together, grew up together.
It's like a crew,
like,
yeah.
skate crew kind of thing. The thing they have in common is this can be done. And it is very hard to find those people.
Yeah. I love that, baby. This can be done.
And I think that
Fuck.
it's that kind of like, they could be doing anything. Like,
You get that feeling when you're watching them.
I'm gonna swim the entire Atlantic Ocean. Like,
Yeah.
there are people who are like, no. And then there are people who are like, huh,
Yeah.
we might die, but let's see if that can be done. And then there's the like literal pieces that fit together. Like there's this part where they're trying to traverse a path, and it's like what you accomplished is millimeter by millimeter, and you have all these people down in the valley that are watching on their binoculars, and they're like, like every time the guy has to start over, it's like, he didn't make it this time, blah blah blah, and it's like those people are totally rooting for him,
Right.
but they do not understand those millimeters.
Yeah.
The fucking shaving the callus off the finger so that you can grip it slightly better.
Well, let's open that up a little bit. What do you mean? Like you said, Muay Thai is in millimeters, and you've said it before about Yo Kumpan's like pressure attack. But the millimeters you're talking about are almost like skin. The millimeters that take the skin off of your fingers. Like what do you mean Muay Thai is in millimeters? In the same way that mountain climbing is in millimeters. Or is it not the same?
It's just that, like, people freak out about their records. Like, people who write to me about they lost, like, having a hard time dealing with their loss, or I'm like, 1-3, should I quit? Like, you have 4 fights, like, I'm sorry, the 1-3 is not the important part. It's just your fucking baby with 4 fights. Like, this, I've talked to people and I've written about how a record says so little about your actual experiences. It's like
either good or bad.
It's like looking at a gravestone and seeing the 2 dates and thinking, fuck all about that person. It's 2 dates, they're numbers.
Yeah.
It says how old they were. You don't know anything about that person. The dash between them says more about that person than the 2 dates. So your record does not mean enough about your experiences for people who actually experience these things. It's for people who don't know anything. So when you're like, I had this pop in success in this fight, I don't know whether people can see that or not. You can see it because you're my husband, you love me, and you watch in this detailed way, and even what you see may not be what I felt. But like, there are times that the progress you feel, or the failure you feel, or the improvements you're trying to make are imperceptible, like, for long stretches of time. And that's what I mean by millimeters. It's like literally the millimeter of how close Yod Kumpan is with his elbow. That's like, if he's that millimeter away, you kind of feel okay, but then when he takes that millimeter, you feel like you're gonna die, or you like just missed death or something.
I'm gonna get gas here.
Yeah.
So let's keep going with this. It reminds me of I don't know, it's very interesting that there's so much satisfaction in millimeters. Like you want the big things like the win or the beautiful knee or whatever it is. But in that movie, when he's like searching for, where's the 91?
Right there, where this guy went.
Sorry, we're getting gas, so we're gonna keep on talking.
This one also.
In that movie, there was like a really cool part where they're undergoing like him searching for the path, which is basically this incredibly sheer rock face where anyone who looks at it, even knowledgeable people who look at it, they're like, there is no path, there is no way forward.
It's a blank wall.
It's just a blank wall. Hey.
ขอก้าวหนึ่งกันทางค่ะ
One sec. And so there's no path, but he looks and looks and looks at that. He studies that wall. He rappels down to the wall. He brings a buddy.
It's like people who map caves.
It's like, yeah. But they're looking for tiny cracks, like patterns of cracks in the wall, which would be a way up. And there's so much satisfaction for them to find the cracks that are the path. And there's a beautiful part in the scene in the movie where he's like looked at this path so many ways, and they figured out the only way forward is this like one particular crazy way. And suddenly he's like, and he's doing the climb, and he's like, no, there's this whole other way. Like, he sees the rocks that he studied so many times differently. What, you okay, baby?
I'm looking at the thing is done.
Oh, no, I think he's still pumping. There we go. And it's very interesting to me, like, not only that Muay Thai is in the millimeters, but it's like you're looking at that rock face, finding these paths, and then suddenly a whole path opens up.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you are capable of taking that path.
Well, it's like what you talk about growing eyes, is like you just didn't see it, and then you see it.
And it's like obvious.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for change here.
But that's another thing that's like,
Cup.
it's like finding the similarities in things is like, I was crying to Kevin last week, having a total crisis breakdown.
I don't even remember.
Which is that I'm doing something that nobody's done before. Like, people fought. Like, I'm not literally doing things that nobody else has done, but my path, like, people have climbed El Capitan, but not on this path.
Yeah.
Like, this is a new path. You have to fucking, like, can I wedge myself in that crevice?
Yeah.
And while I was climbing this other one, a little piece of the rock chinked off, and now I can't go that way anymore. Like,
And
it's really disorienting and scary to, like, be in the dark, but because of the obsession, because of the love for, like, I will find this path, because of the belief in the possibility, you're like, I get this dude. Like,
you get that.
I get that dude.
You got the guy on the film in the film.
Yeah.
That's a really beautiful analogy. I'm so happy we had this discussion about it, because I don't think I'd quite have seen it the same way. For everyone who's not close to what Sylvie's doing, yeah, it's amazing to fight so often and to whatever achievements, right? Any achievements, they're incredible, right? And you can argue about them this way, that whatever. The little things, like finding fights that you can fight, how to respond to continuous differing injuries, negotiating Thai culture roadblocks, which are very subtle and hard to read. Like, they're not easy. To continually be respectful to people, but also get freedom. To push yourself, to, like, remind yourself, yeah, being this exhausted isn't something that's wrong. This is normal. I just forget that every week I feel this way. Like, negotiating those kinds of things is just like this guy on Dawn Wall, finding all those little cracks up that wall. And when you're saying nobody's around to, like, tell me how you do this, you're doing the same thing that guy did, and he's trying to find these, like, the way the cracks have to go so he can wedge his fingers in them. Sometimes you're, like, passing through very narrow pathways. Is that the end?
You're saying that you just realized something that I just said, so how do I answer
well,
that?
I'm giving you, like, yes, my perspective on it. I didn't just repeat your words.
No, that's how I feel.
I added details for people that don't live with us.
But it's also
right? Right, baby?
Other people can climb this path. They might not climb it the way you climbed it. Like, it's your pattern or whatever.
Yeah, no one's going to climb this path, though. But they can climb parts of it.
Yeah. What are they called?
I don't know.
You do, like, a stage of it.
Oh, pitches.
Pitches.
Yeah, pitches. And it just... it's very beautiful. Like, I recommend watching both of these movies. The Free Solo was kind of interesting in that dimension where you're like, nobody understands me. Like, why I fight or why I do this. it embodied that dimension.
Yeah.
He's just a very strange person, and he's totally in his skin. Like, he's fine with who he is.
Yeah.
And he's fine with people not understanding him.
Yeah.
And then the other one has the dimension of, like, more operational, like, how do you make this thing happen?
Yeah. But the Dawn Wall explores how damaging or constructive or connective it can be in relationships. That, like, this kind of obsession breaks relationships or brings relationships. True. He had in the free solo, he like had some serious problems with his girlfriend, because how do you have a relationship with someone who's like kind of probably going to kill themselves? It's fucking hard to love that person, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
But they're both very good.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, shoot us a note if you know of any other like awesome documentaries.
Yeah.
We've probably watched many of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Like Dawn Wall, we hadn't heard of a couple weeks ago. Meru, I think it was incredible. Another mountain climbing. It's really interesting that we've taken so much inspiration from mountain climbing, because it's not really your thing, although you're from the mountains, from Colorado.
Yeah.
But Meru also influenced us a big time, because remember that phrase, the mountain makes its own weather?
Is that from Meru?
That's from Meru, because it was like when you're on the mountain and the weather clears, you have to climb.
I thought that was Everest.
Everest isn't a movie. I don't think. That was Meru. I'm almost positive. And so that was what we would tell ourselves when Sylvie was booking fights. It's like, it's hard, they're sometimes hard to find fights, and when the mountain makes its own weather, you fight those fights.
When the day is clear, you climb.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you booked 6 fights in this month?
Yeah.
Yep, that's the mountain is saying climb.
Yeah.
And then there's time in the mountain is like, you can't climb.
Yeah. So 5 days of rain. Missed.
Okay, I think we covered that. That's good. So that's the end of this Muay Thai Bones segment. We did not get everything we talked about onto video, but we got a lot.
Most of it.
So thank you everyone who supports us on Patreon. If you're a patron, you get to listen to it in an audio form, like on iTunes or an Android-based system, or you can watch it on video on YouTube for free.
Yes, and not only do our patrons allow us to do everything that we do, but when we keep having technical malfunctions like this, you allow us to upgrade our equipment, which allows us actually to do more. Like, we weren't able to do the podcast before upgrading the equipment, so thank you for making not only everything that we do possible, but all of our like progressive steps possible as well.
So thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next road trip.